What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto's Kurama merged with Ddraig in HighSchool DxD and created the most dangerous dragon ever? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Madara had just been revived with the Gedo Tensai no Jutsu, Outer Path, Samsara of Heavenly Life technique, and with his newly revived body easily overpowered Hashirama and absorbed his Senjutsu chakra. Madara then mowed through a platoon of shinobi before stopping in front of Shukaku, Matabi, Isobu, Son Goku, Kakuo, Saiken, and Chomei. "I'll be taking you all next, you filthy beasts," Madara announced as the remaining shinobi evacuated the area. A blind Madara leaned forward before jumping towards the Bijuu Gaara, who was floating on his sand cloud directly in front of Shukaku's face. Gaara stared in surprise at Madara's approaching form. "Shukaku, get ready," Gaara said before extending his hand, forming small compacted balls of sand. Shukaku formed the ram hand seal. "Let's go wild." Futon. Sasandon, wind release. Sand buckshot. Shukaku cried with joy as he released a powerful blast of wind, causing a large amount of compacted sandballs to fly at Madara like a shot from a shotgun. Madara crossed his arms as he was continuously pelted by hundreds of sand bullets, which pierced his skin, causing him to bleed. "Nice jutsu," Madara praised after the sand buckshot stopped. "But it lacks the finishing power," Madara said before divebombing. Gaara clenched his fist as the sand within Madara's body began to restrict his movements. "So, you implanted your sand with this jutsu to stifle movement?" Madara said before Matabi struck him with her paw, sending him backwards. Madara flew into Isobu, who is curled into a ball. Madara proceeded to bounce off the ground, as Son Goku jumped into the air before kicking Madara away. Kakuo proceeded to headbutt Madara into the air, while Chomei flew above Madara before striking him down to the ground with her horn. Saiken released a large pool of acidic poison which Madara fell into. "Now, Shukaku," Gaara ordered. Shukaku shot his arms forward as they turned into sand, which snaked their way through the acidic poison before attacking Madara. The sand quickly took a pyramid-like shape as Shukaku's natural curse seal spread across the pyramid. "Sabaku Soteso Fuin, desert layered imperial funeral seal," Gaara thought as he lowered his guard. "It's a Sabaku Soteso Fuin that uses my sand and curse seal pattern. He'll never take another breath of fresh air again," Shukaku declared with a chuckle. A blue ethereal blade burst through the pyramid, catching Shukaku and Gaara by complete surprise. Madara's humanoid Susanoo dug its way out of the pyramid. The other Bijuu looked on in astonishment and fear as the Susanoo leapt out of the pyramid, completely jumping over them and landing far behind them. Floating within the chest of the Susanoo, Madara spoke. "I'll be putting collars on you shortly. Not one of you will be able to get away," Madara declared. "I won't let you." Naruto roared within Kurama's avatar. With a strike from Kurama's mighty tail, he slammed the Susanoo into the ground. "No one here is going to wag his or her tail for you," Kurama growled. "Sorry we're late. We were moving the injured." Gyuki spoke to his sister Matabi. Matabi replied immediately. "Don't worry, there won't be any more wounded. We're ending this now. Stack tails," Kurama ordered. "Right," all the Bijuu replied as they too struck Madara's broken Susanoo with their tails, shaking the ground and causing a large explosion of dust and debris. "You were close, damn raccoon," Kurama taunted. "Quick, ordering this around, you dumb fox," Shukaku retorted. "But this should," Naruto thought as one of Madara's arms fell out of the cloud of dust, while Madara jumped out, landing far away from the Bijuu. "Persistent bastard," Son Goku grumbled in annoyance. "But he's already taken a beating," Matabi thought aloud. "All right, one more blast," Naruto cheered. "Yeah, let's go, Naruto." Gaara cheered his friend's enthusiasm. Madara had just received the second most brutal beating of his life. The 9 Bijuus literally just crushed him. And to top it all off, his arm was severed at mid-bicep, and he had multiple marble-sized puncture wounds all over his body. A white humanoid figure with green hair and yellow eyes emerged from the ground beside Madara. "Sorry I'm late, Madara-sama." Zetsu spoke calmly to Madara. "You're finally here. Do you have it with you?" Madara asked. "Of course." Zetsu replied as Madara severed his arm at mid-bicep level, before sticking the prosthetic white arm onto his bleeding stump that used to be an arm. Madara flexed his new arm a few times before implanting his eye. Madara opened his eyes to reveal a light purple scleras with a ripple pattern spread across the entire eyeball. Madara gave a sickening grin as he cried tears of blood. This should make things a little bit fun, Madara declared before grunting in pain and staring at the puncture wounds in his arm. Madara reached down before licking the blood from one of his puncture wounds. The taste of this blood, this pain. This is my body, Madara said calmly before he began to laugh in an insane manner which even frightened the Bijuus. Finally, I can fully savor battle again, Madara thought before he calmed down. Madara glared towards the Bijuu as he smeared blood across the palm of his new prosthetic hand. Kurama was now on full alert, as Naruto took notice. What's wrong, Kurama? Kurama snarled. His blood. It's bringing back some really bad memories, Kurama replied. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Blood, Naruto muttered to himself. That repulsive blood he used to summon me long ago. Shukaku snorted in amusement. Don't get scared and stick your tails in between your legs, you dumb fox. I wouldn't underestimate him if I were you. He's not your average human. This isn't like you. It's rubbing me the wrong way, Shukaku answered back, feeling a little uncomfortable. Madara slapped his hand to the ground as a spider web design of kanji spread across the ground. Kachiyose no jutsu, summoning technique. Obito's body began to tremble as the Gedo Mazo was ripped from his body. Obito, Kakashi spoke in a concerned tone of voice. The giant statue leaned forward, slamming its humongous hands into the ground. He's gonna fight us using that? Kakashi, can you do it? Minato asked, ordered. Yes, somehow I'll have to, Kakashi replied before channeling chakra to his Sharingan. Kamui. The space around the Gedo Mazo began to distort before it vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving behind a single severed arm of the gigantic statue. Did it work? Minato asked his last loyal student. Kakashi was panting. I think it was a failure. Madara had successfully summoned the Gedo Mazo, as everyone took notice of the gigantic statue, especially the Bijuu, Naruto, and Gaara. The right arm was wrenched off. Seems like there's someone left with good eyes on the other side. Well, it's not much of an impediment. And now, I've got a cage for them. Madara spoke in an uncaring tone. Madara then turned his sights towards the Bijuu. Now all I have to do is shove them in there. Can a fake Rinnegan from an Edo Tensei really summon that thing? Son Goku thought aloud. He's wounded and bleeding. In other words, he's not an Edo Tensei anymore. He possesses a real Rinnegan. Matabi replied. How did he come back to life? Chomei groaned in annoyance. Naruto's eyes widened when he realized what happened. Don't tell me. He made Obito use the Rinne Tensei. He spoke in a tone full of surprise and horror. Madara's wounds began to heal due to both Hashirama's cells and Senjutsu now implanted in his body. Madara quickly jumped up on top of the statue's head before whispering out. Rinbo. Hengoku, Limbo. Border Jail. As the 9 Bijuus all felt an invisible force hit them in the face. Ah. Kakik, Hahoag, Ka, Wa, Ra, Ya, Ugh. Shukaku through Kurama all cried out in pain, as they were sent hurling away. Madara then performed the snake hand seal. That ought to have tamed you a bit. Now I can put on your collars, Madara declared, as the Gedo Mazo's mouth opened as it spewed out 9 purple chakra chains. The 9 chains made their way towards the 9 Bijuus before quickly wrapping around their necks tightly. Right, if I stop this Kurama mode. Madara just smirked at Naruto, trying his best to save Kurama. It's useless. I've grabbed them, and I won't let go. Madara chuckled darkly. It doesn't work, Naruto said. Kurama won't go back inside of me. Naruto roared and thought. Gaara attempted to save Shukaku but was knocked out of the way by Madara's Susanoo lance. And with the young Cage out of the way, Madara was free to extract the Hachibi and Kyuubi with no more further distractions. Listen, Cage brat, you need to get Naruto to Minato. He has my yin half. If you can transfer my yin half into Naruto, he will survive. Did you get that, Gaara? Kurama asked the red-haired Cage. Kurama, Naruto yelled out as the Kyuubi was being forcefully ripped out of the blonde's body. Naruto recoiled backwards and began to fall from a height of 39 meters, feeling the effects of losing his Bijuu. A Jinchuriki without their Bijuu will undoubtedly die. I can't let it end this way. Whenever have I ever given up? I'll never give up, I never give in. Not until I become Hokage. I won't stop fighting, I choose to fight back. Everyone is relying on me. Naruto mentally retorted to himself as he gritted his teeth in anger. Unfortunately for Naruto, there wasn't much he could do at this moment. His body was getting weaker by the second, his mind was beginning to shut down. And unlike his mother, who was a full-blooded Uzumaki and was able to survive the extraction of Kurama, for a little while at least, Naruto was only half and was already feeling the effects of death claiming him. Madara stared on impassively at Naruto's body as it fell from a great height. All his plans should now proceed smoothly with that problem child out of the way. If he would have been the same age as Naruto, Madara would have been defeated for sure, but he was a seasoned veteran and someone like Naruto would have no chance of defeating him. A disturbing grin spread across Madara's face now that all the Bijuu and the chakra construct of the Kyuubi were in his chains. Everything was going smoothly for Madara until he was attacked from behind. Bringing up his Susanoo ribcage to block the attacker, who was none other than the man who claimed his brother's life. Tobirama Senju. How Madara hated this man with every fiber of his being. Quickly conjuring up his limbo shadow and knocking Tobirama away like a rag doll. Madara, unfortunately, did not notice the strange seal on Tobirama's back. It was Minato's Hiraishin seal. And in a flash, Minato appeared directly behind Madara and slamming his Rasengan directly into Madara's back, sending him hurling forward. Madara gritted his teeth in anger. Why couldn't he detect Minato even after stealing Hashirama Senjutsu chakra? This turn of events broke his concentration, freeing the Bijuus from the Mazo no Kusari, outer path chains. Minato jumped off the Gedo Mazo's head and quickly making his way over to his son. Quickly placing his hand on the seal on his chest, Minato transferred the yin portion of Kurama into his son. The yang portion of Kurama made his way over to the father and son duo. Minato, this is your only chance, you have to seal me back in your son as well. It's the only way he'll be able to defeat Madara, he needs my full power. Minato simply stared at the large orange fox before nodding, before making a one-handed tiger seal. Seal. Minato spoke as the yang portion of Kurama disappeared into Naruto. Almost instantly, Naruto's eyes snapped open as he sat up. Quickly looking around, he saw his father sitting next to him. "To-san? What happened to Kurama?" "It's okay, Naruto, he's back inside you, as both halves have become one. I'm proud of you, my son. I'll be sure to tell Kushina everything that you've accomplished. But I'm pretty sure she already knows, she's been watching over you this whole time. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry that you had to grow up alone, Naruto. Goodbye, my son, I will always love you no matter what." Minato spoke in a cheerful tone as his body disintegrated, allowing his spirit to finally be reunited with his wife in the Pure Land. "I will too, san. Dat bao," Naruto replied as he wiped away the tears from his eyes. Naruto now stood tall and proud once more. His blue eyes were now filled with determination. Naruto gained orange pigmentation around his eyes, as his once cerulean blue irises changed yellow with horizontal brick pupils. Naruto then looked towards Madara, who is now pushing himself off the ground. The ghost of the Uchiha was now glaring daggers at Naruto. Naruto happily returned the favor, giving Madara a glare of his own before his body was engulfed by golden chakra once more. Although this time, it was different than before, Naruto now had the complete Kurama chakra mode. He had both portions of Kurama and finally reunited into one. Naruto's body was completely cloaked in golden chakra with 6 Magatama markings around his neck. The whisker-like markings on his face became thicker. Naruto had black lines traveling down his arms and legs. Naruto's bangs also stood up similar to horns. His eyes were yellow. His pupils are a cross of vertical fox slits with horizontal toad pupils. Naruto was ready to take down Madara permanently. Even if it meant he would die, he was still gonna go down fighting. Naruto turned his head to the other 8 Bijuus and with a kind smile. "You 8 get out of here, you're free now. I don't want you getting caught again. Because as powerful as he is, it would take him quite a while to hunt each one of you down." Son Goku's eyes widened in surprise before narrowing. "What are you talking about, Gaki? Ho ho ho. We're not leaving you to deal with this monster by yourself. Ho ho ho." The large red-furred monkey held out. Matabi nodded. Son Goku is correct, Naruto-kun. We can't just let you deal with Madara on your own. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if you were killed because we weren't here to help you. Matabi spoke in a slightly saddened tone. There's no way I'm letting that fox outdo me again. Like it or not, Gaki, we're helping you. Shukaku cried out. I'm with Matabi on this one, Naruto. Me and B wouldn't be able to forgive ourselves if you died. It wouldn't feel right. Remember what Itachi told you. You can't do everything on your own. Gyuki spoke in a lecturing tone. They're right, Naruto, you can't do this on your own. Madara's perfect Susanoo was equal in strength to me. And it's the same size as me as well. Even with Senjutsu enhancing my power, it wouldn't be enough to take him down. Accept their help, Naruto, accept the help of my siblings, and together we will crush this Uchiha shit stain. Kurama roared at Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes as he smiled. How could he have been so stupid to believe he could do this on his own? Thank you everyone, it means a lot to me to know that you all care so much about me. Yes, let's take Madara down together, and bring peace to this godforsaken world. Naruto roared, as the 9 Bijuu cheered. Go ahead, filled those filthy beasts full of false hopes. It will make it that much sweeter to watch the despair on their faces, as they are consumed one by the Mazo. Madara spoke in an emotionless tone, as his single Rinnegan eye pulsed with power. Naruto, we need to destroy that eye first. Whatever technique he used before to knock us away, is obviously an ability that only another Rinnegan user can counter. Be careful, Naruto, because if I'm correct it's going to be nearly impossible to stop him. Kurama spoke in a grim tone, while Naruto simply grinned. Don't worry Kurama, I'm unpredictable, remember, so let's show this Uchiha who he is messing with. Naruto replied to Kurama, who simply grinned in response. Without warning, Naruto kicked off, causing the ground to explode as he literally flew across the ground towards Madara. In response, Madara rose his arm in a defensive posture, although grunting in slight pain as Naruto's fist landed directly into his forearm. Madara then countered with a kick straight at Naruto's head. Naruto blocked the kick with his other hand. Madara then gripped Naruto's wrist before flipping himself over Naruto and throwing the blonde. Madara then turned to his side as he saw the other beasts heading straight towards him. Smirking, Madara whispered, Rinbo, Hengoku, as the 8 Bijuus all felt a familiar invisible force hit them in the face. Not again. Kakek, Hahoag, Ka, Wa, Ra, Ya, Shukaku through Gyuki all cried out in pain, as they were sent hurling away. Madara wasn't concerned with them. He could easily overpower them at any moment and suck them back into the Gedo Mazo. Naruto was the real problem, although this Sasuke Uchiha he heard about could possibly become a problem in the future. And sure enough, Madara heard a familiar high-pitched shrill noise. Turning, he saw a familiar chakra shuriken approaching him at a frightening speed. However, Madara simply raised his hand preparing to absorb the technique, only for it to disappear in a cloud of smoke, revealing Naruto in all his glory. Madara's single eye widened in surprise, before Naruto cold-cocked him directly in the face. The punch was strong enough to send Madara sailing across the ground before he was able to compose himself and landed on the ground gracefully. Madara looked up as he saw Naruto running directly at him with a Bijuu Senjutsu enhanced Rasengan. Madara narrowed his eyes as he manifested his dark blue Susanoo ribs, which were shattered the moment the Rasengan made impact. Naruto then noticed Madara had a grin on his face. It wasn't happy, it was a bloodthirsty grin. Ha 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 ha. Oh yes, you're far stronger now. You're possibly even stronger than Hashirama, but that may be pushing a bit far, Naruto Uzumaki. Now, shall we dance before you die? Madara spoke in a very cheerful tone. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard this. He was completely caught off guard. He wasn't expecting Madara to say something like that. Unfortunately, due to his shock, it left him wide open for Madara to kick him in the side of the head, sending him tumbling across the landscape. Naruto, quickly catching himself, looked up in time to see Madara rushing towards him with a psychotic look on his face. Naruto then disappeared in a golden flash, before appearing directly in front of Madara with another Rasengan. Anyone else wouldn't have been able to see the blonde's insane speed or movement, but Madara wasn't normal by any stretch of the imagination. He had the Rinnegan and the highest echelon of the Sharingan. Madara dodges the oncoming spiraling sphere of death and immediately retaliated with a lightning-fast punch that made Naruto go flying back. However, Naruto dispersed in a cloud of smoke after taking the solid hit, revealing that it was a clone. When did he make a clone? I didn't notice it with my Rinnegan. Madara thought to himself, although he had experience and techniques under his belt, he would now have to act cautiously. However, the strongest Uchiha received no respite. A fully formed Rasen Shuriken was approaching from behind at frightening pace. Madara felt a small bit of disappointment. Naruto was still acting quite predictable, so his victory wouldn't be too difficult. And here he thought he may have found a challenge that would equal or surpass Hashirama. Madara simply turned around and moving his hand towards the deadly chakra shuriken. And once more, the deadly attack suddenly dispersed into smoke, revealing a smirking clone with another Rasen Shuriken at the ready. Madara's eye widened in surprise. Before a smirk appeared on his face, perhaps he was wrong about Naruto. But he can praise the blonde later once he was dead, moving his hand in a position that Naruto knew too well. Shinra Tensai. The clone flew backwards, dispelling in a cloud of smoke. Madara, still with a smirk on his face, was somewhat proud of Naruto. If he would have acted a little bit slower, then attack may have hit him. Especially at that speed, that ridiculous speed that was even faster than the Raikage with his lightning armor activated. Although the attack would have hit, it was a very small possibility that the legendary Uchiha would have survived. However, Madara had no time to simply sit around and think. Another Kurama Chakra mode clone suddenly appeared behind Madara, his body glowing in even brighter gold. There was another Rasen Shuriken in his hands. Madara could see the amount of chakra placed into the ability and how deadly the technique truly was with his Rinnegan. For Kami's sake, even without his eyes, he could feel the ridiculous amount of chakra placed into the ability. There was no way he would let himself get hit by that technique. Naruto grinned. Your 5 seconds are up, so take this and go back to hell where you belong. Naruto yelled out as he threw the gigantic spiraling shuriken sphere. That should have finished it. Naruto declared internally, only for his eyes to widen in disbelief. This time, Madara succeeded in absorbing the technique. What the hell? How could his eyes be that ridiculous? There should be some type of limit to how much chakra he can absorb. The blonde complained, seriously, the Rinnegan was stupidly overpowered. What happened, Naruto? You really had me going for quite a while. You stopped the clones and attempted to attack me with an actual chakra technique. How disappointing. I thought you knew that these eyes can absorb chakra, to be more specific, an infinite amount of chakra to be exact. Madara spoke in a disappointed tone. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. How is he supposed to defeat Madara? Even with one Rinnegan, the man was overpowered as shit. Looks like you could use some help, Dobi. A voice called from above. Naruto looked up as he saw descending towards the ground, as he dispelled his Hawk's summoning. Madara narrowed his single eye. This could prove to be a problem? Madara thought to himself. Sasuke then looked at Naruto. Naruto, you want to try that collaboration one more time? The Armored Fox collaboration, it's our best bet on defeating him. Sasuke advised as his eyes pulsed with power. Naruto nodded as he increased his power output. His golden chakra took the shape of Kurama in all his glory. Sasuke followed suit by manifesting his Susanoo over Kurama's avatar, manifesting a sword in each hand, as well as manifesting a pair of wings on its back. The duo glared down at the ghost of the Uchiha. Madara smirked as he began to chuckle. Well, this is certainly a surprise. Copying what I did so long ago during my battle with Hashirama. I'm honestly impressed. Now let's see if you can handle this, my perfect Susanoo. Madara spoke in a cheerful tone. As a geyser of dark blue energy erupted from Madara's body, taking the shape of a 100-meter-tall ethereal samurai warrior, with the second pair of arms holstered to the back of its shoulders. The armored Kurama was equal in size to Madara Susanoo, and without warning the two behemoths clashed with each other, slamming their ethereal katanas together, sending sparks and shockwaves across the battlefield. Madara sent a horizontal strike which Kurama jumped over it. Unfortunately, it's the mountains in the background. The ethereal fox opened its massive jaws, as he gathered both positive red chakra and negative blue chakra, forming a massive purple sphere of chaotic chakra. Madara narrowed his eye, before widened as he saw the Susanoo armored Kyuubi shoving both ethereal katanas through the sphere, forming an X. Amaterasu. Sasuke roared as he cloaked the deadly sphere in the eternal black flames of Amaterasu. Right on cue, they fired the massive sphere of chaotic chakra at Madara. Unfortunately for Madara, his Susanoo had no wings. He couldn't just fly away like Sasuke and Naruto did. He simply got into a defensive position and hoped for the best. As he was using his perfect Susanoo, he could no longer use his Rinnegan techniques. The X-shaped Bijuu contacted Madara, causing an explosion of epic proportions. When the smoke and dust had cleared, Madara was standing, but obviously with some difficulty. Instead of succumbing to the torch's pain, the man began to yell with exertion as his perfect Susanoo appeared over him, standing equal ground with Naruto and Sasuke once more. Naruto just shook his head, his smirk still in place, while Sasuke simply sported an emotionless look. Madara then felt something wrong. He felt an immense amount of pain radiating through his body. His chakra coils, they were damaged badly. What had Naruto done to that Bijuu? What have you done? He said in an ice-cold tone, but even the members of Team 7 could see the cracks starting to become apparent. The shinobi in front of his was going insane from rage now that his grand plans seemed to be at an end. Well, Madara, it was quite simple. I infused that Bijuu with not only my senjutsu but also my wind release as well. You see, my wind chakra has a poisonous effect on whoever is unfortunate enough to get hit by it. In simple terms, it attacks your body at the cellular level, destroying your chakra network permanently. Naruto spoke in a dangerous tone. With that said, Naruto and Sasuke released their armored Kurama Susanoo collaboration. Madara, with very little chakra to his disposal thanks to Naruto and Sasuke's collaboration, glared at the two young shinobi standing before him. Sasuke, I want you to go to Kakashi-sensei and make sure you destroy Madara's other eye. And I'll meet you over there once I'm done over here, Naruto asked. Sasuke simply glared at Naruto but nodded as he jumped off in the direction of Obito and the others. Naruto walked towards Madara, pulling out a kunai. He was ready to finish off the legendary Uchiha. Naruto hated killing, but someone like Madara needed to be ended permanently. As much as it pains me to take the life of another living being, I have no choice but to kill you, Madara. You're too much of a threat. May you find peace in the afterlife. Naruto spoke in a calm, cool tone. Enough, just kill that bastard already, Naruto. The sooner you kill him, the sooner we can go home. Kurama advised while Naruto nodded. I see. So this is it, huh? This is how the great Madara will die to a child nonetheless. How humiliating, but this will be my final action. Before I leave this world forever. Madara grunted from his position on the floor, already knowing he was going to die anyways even if Naruto didn't kill him. Naruto suddenly felt the chakra in the vulnerable shinobi increase to heightened measures. How can this be? I thought to destroy his chakra network. What is he doing? Naruto thought to himself in confusion. Kurama, unlike his container, already knew what the insane man was doing. Naruto, get out of the way. Kurama warned Naruto, who tried to respond but it was too late. Madara's Rinnegan pulsed with power as it opened a dark blue portal. Naruto's body was sucked up by the Uchiha's last jutsu. Madara, seeing the blonde's body slowly swirling into a portal that he created, closed his eye. If I will die, then the shinobis will never have their hero back, Madara stated with a final smirk before dying. The only sign that the man had gone to the next life was that Naruto could not feel Madara's chakra any longer, which was a relief. His friends would finally be able to live, and his purpose in life seemed complete. As his final action in this world, Naruto slowly scrawled out a last message onto a sealing paper and dropped it on the ground wrapped around a kunai. Right when the kunai hit the dirt, Naruto disappeared. Hinata, who had seen everything occur, rushed from her position and sprinted to where Naruto last stood. Despite the pain of overexertion and chakra exhaustion taking over her body, she continued to run. When she reached the scarred battlefield, she ignored the deceased enemy and went straight for the paper and kunai. On it were scrawled two barely legible words in Naruto's handwriting that would make all that were close to the blonde cry from the loss of a precious person. Goodbye, everyone. Naruto groaned, opening his eyes. He found himself in an endless void, where in every direction, there is a mix of iridescent colors. Naruto tried desperately to stay awake, but he couldn't. It seems exhaustion had finally kicked in. Fighting for nearly 2 days straight, having a Bijuu extracted from you, resealing the same Bijuu, and getting sent through a dimensional portal takes a lot out of you. Naruto could hear the voice of Kurama trying to contact him, but Naruto was too tired to answer back, his eyes were getting heavy. And the last thing Naruto saw was a massive red western dragon with a horn on his snout and has two sets of wings. The behemoth of a creature was making its way towards him before everything went dark. The large western dragon merely glanced at the unconscious blonde before gently cradling him in his large clawed hand. An interesting one you are. Yes, you have much potential in you, perhaps you'll be the one to unite the world. The massive reptile thought to himself before placing Naruto on top of his head. I know you're there, Fox, you can speak to me freely. Kurama recoiled in shock. You can hear me even inside the kid's mind? Kurama replied in surprise as the dragon chuckled in amusement. Yes, I can. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Great Red, Dragon of Dreams, the Dragon of the Apocalypse, or simple old DxD. Great Red introduced himself to Kurama. Kurama was floored. I didn't think dragons existed? But nonetheless, my name is Kurama, strongest of the 9 Bijuu. Great Red nodded. I have plans for your host Kurama, nothing dangerous, just a second chance at life. I'll let him keep all of his abilities along with you, plus a few new abilities and maybe a few more roommates to keep you company. The dragon chuckled as Kurama's eyes widened before he grumbled. Wait, what do you mean by roommates? I do not want to share my space with anyone. Kurama roared in anger. Great Red simply ignored Kurama's retort. Now listen here, Fox. And listen well. While you are close to Heavenly Dragon class, your power is not absolute in the world I am sending you and your host to. In fact, I can erase you along with your siblings with a mere thought. Great Red replied while he flew through the endless void of the dimensional gap. Hearing this caused Kurama to gasp. I got your attention, now I plan on giving your host Albion and Ddraig the 2 heavenly dragons. Because with their power and yours, your host Naruto Uzumaki will become something great, I can feel it. Great Red chuckled as he cut the link in between him and Kurama. Now all I have to do is find a suitable mother for Naruto. And I know just the dragoness to talk to. Great Red thought with glee. Kurama glared at the endless void of his host's mindscape. Why do I always get pulled into the annoying situations? Kurama growled before stomping around as he lay down in front of his Jinchuriki host's unconscious subconscious. I can only hope you're prepared for what this big dragon has planned for you, Naruto. Because I have a feeling your life is going to get a lot more hectic than usual. Kurama thought aloud before closing his eyes. I might as well enjoy the silence while it lasts. Before Albion and Ddraig arrive. Kurama thought to himself as he drifted off into a blissful slumber. Not even 10 seconds later, a pair of bright orbs appeared in front of the sleeping Kurama and the unconscious Naruto. One was blood red, while the other one was bluish-white. 2 western dragons appeared, and both were unconscious, as if they were in a deep sleep. The first was a large red western dragon, with a long neck and has red and golden spikes throughout its body. The second was a large white western dragon, with 2 gold horns. It was a warm night in the thick, creepy, familiar forest, which was deep in Devil's territory within the underworld. The moon was almost full, meaning that soon devils of all kinds would come to the forest to find familiars. However, there was a thick mist forming on the forest floor, making it difficult to see or navigate through the forest. The sound of humming could be heard from a large cave which was located in the northeast corner of the forest. And at closer inspection of the floor of the cave, one would notice cracks filled with what seemed to be streaming water and beautiful blue sapphires. And all one would need to do was follow the noise of running water, not like in a bathtub but more of a stream. Which would lead to an open area that seemed to be a large pool of waist-deep steaming water. Leaning against the edge of the large pool of water was a woman who was completely naked as the day she was born. She appeared as an extremely beautiful young woman, with long, slightly curly pale blue hair. She had a beautiful angled face, beautiful eyes that were a dark shade of violet, and her lips were cerulean blue. Her skin was bronze, her eyes were large, firm, and perky, with dark pink eyes. This was the strongest of the Godai Ryuo, 5 great dragon kings, Tiamat the Chaos Karma Dragon. And she was currently bathing, as she continued to hum a light tune. However, she was brought out of her blissful state, as an immensely powerful presence made itself known. Tiamat's eyes sharpened as she knew this presence all too well. It was the apocalyptic dragon Great Red. Calm yourself, Chaos Karma Dragon. I am here merely to speak with you. Tiamat focused her sights on the entrance to the hot springs, as a miniature version of the Great Red lazily hovered in front of her. Syareoo Shinte-sama? Why have you come here? The brunette asked, obviously confused. Great Red simply smirked. I have a plan which involves you. Now I must ask you to please listen to me because your answer will decide the fate of this world. This caught Tiamat by surprise as her eyes widened in surprise. What? The fate of the world would be decided by her answer? Just what could the Syareoo Shinte have in mind that could be so crucial that could ultimately result in salvation or the destruction of the world? I have seen the future of this world, and it will ultimately lead to this world's destruction. Two people in particular, Rizevim Levon Lucifer, son of the morning star himself and the beginning mother of all devils, and Hades, the Greek god of the dead who is a member of the top 10. These two will cause the end of the world as we know it, therefore I have come up with a countermeasure. The Dragon of Dreams declared. Why come to me? Why not go to the faction leaders and tell them about this? Tiamat asked, confused as to why the most powerful being in existence would come to her. Great Red shook his head. That would do little good, since the actions of Rizevim are what pushed Hades into doing the unspeakable. Using Lilith's body to create an army of super devils to destroy the world, or at least all devils and fallen angels. Great Red replied without giving way too much. Tiamat was at a loss for words. Therefore, I have chosen you to mother this child I have found in the dimensional gap. He holds great potential to surpass possibly even Shiva. He also holds a great deal of power already. But to ensure that he has the power to lead this world to a brighter future, I have gifted him with Albion and Ddraig. I have melded the boosted gear and divine dividing into one, creating a new Longinus sacred gear that even surpasses the true Longinus in power. Tiamat's eyes narrowed at hearing the name of Ddraig. I refuse. Great Red narrowed his golden eyes, unleashing a torrent of killer intent, causing Tiamat to gasp for air. You refuse just because of a little grudge you have against him? That's foolish. You would merely let the world fall to ruin for such a petty reason. I will return your treasures in exchange. You raise this boy, and you will raise Naruto Uzumaki properly. I have seen this boy's memories and he never grew up with a mother nor a father. Great Red told the strongest dragon king. Tiamat was finally able to breathe normally after the Apocalypse Dragon withdrew his killer intent. Why me? Why would you choose me? Wouldn't Ophis be a better choice? Tiamat offered as Great Red snorted. As if I would let that snake anywhere near Naruto, she would manipulate the boy and turn him into an emotionless weapon to use against me. And the moment she's done with him, she would cast him aside as if he was nothing more than a used candy wrapper. Plus, there is another reason why I chose you, Chaos Karma Dragon. You have the backing of the current Beelzebub. And people wouldn't even question anything about his existence. Most people would believe he was a love child in between you and Ajuka Beelzebub. Great Red offered. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a mother, but I could never find a suitable mate. Tiamat thought aloud. In truth, she wanted to experience everything that motherhood could offer. That includes giving birth to her hatchling or hatchlings. Hearing this, Great Red smirked. I can help you with that. This caught Tiamat's attention as Great Red opened his small clawed hand, revealing a thick condensed orb of ghostly blue flames. This here is Naruto Uzumaki. I have converted his body into this sphere for easier travel. Now I could implant this in your womb, and you would give birth to him the same way you would give birth to any normal hatchling. Of course, once he's implanted into you, he will be born as your son. And I believe motherhood would be something that would benefit both of you. Great Red said as he chuckled when he witnessed a twinkle in Tiamat's eyes. Tiamat reached out her hand to touch the orb only for it to disappear as she pouted. You still haven't given me your answer, Tiamat. Will you raise Naruto and ensure the salvation of this world? Or will you reject him and cause the ultimate destruction of this world? Great Red asked, patiently waiting for Tiamat's answer. Tiamat sat there in the hot spring water. She seemed deep in thought. I have a chance to have a son, a real son. But he's going to be the host of both Albion and Ddraig. I don't mind Albion that much, it's just Ddraig. He never returned my treasures and now they're spread across the globe being used by different factions. But Syareoo Shinte-sama said he would return my treasures if I raised Naruto as my own. It is a win-win situation for both of us, I guess. I get my treasures back and I get a son, my own hatchling, while Great Red prevents the destruction of the world. Tiamat thought as a small motherly smile graced her lips. Great Red smirked at the Chaos Karma Dragon. I honestly didn't think she'd be this easy to persuade, but if all I had to do to get her to raise Naruto is return her treasures, then that's a small price to pay for the salvation of this world. I mean, really, does anyone really understand how difficult my job is? Ophis is too stupid to realize what the dimensional gap truly is. It's not only a giant void, but essentially, it's a giant gateway that people can use to travel to other universes or dimensions. She wouldn't even attempt to stop people from traveling across different dimensions. And there are many beings out there that can easily annihilate me with a mere thought. That's truly frightening. Great Red thought to himself, remembering a hairless purple humanoid cat, Beerus, the god of destruction. The large red western dragon shivered at the mere thought of a true god of destruction, one that made Shiva look like a single-celled organism in comparison. Tiamat had a gentle smile as she was thinking of all the things she can do with and teach Naruto. Oh, I'll be the best mother anyone could ever ask for, she thought as she looked at the true dragon before her. Syareoo Shinte-sama, Tiamat said, gaining Great Red's attention. I wish to be the mother of Naruto Uzumaki. I will raise him to be a proud, strong dragon. And I will ensure the salvation of this world. Tiamat gave her answer to the Syareoo Shinte, who smirked in return. Very well, it shall be done, Great Red said as the small blue orb flew towards Tiamat as it contacted her stomach. Tiamat blinked once, twice, 3 times before the orb seemed to phase through her, before she released a small moan as she felt life beginning to form in her womb. Dawning blush on her cheeks as she looked up at DxD, who smirked at her. I expect great things from you, Tiamat. You raise him properly and I will return your treasures. But from the looks of it, I'll have nothing to worry about, Great Red said before opening a tear in space-time and returning to the dimensional gap. Tiamat stared at the space where Great Red once had occupied, before turning her attention to her now slightly swollen belly. A small smile graced her lips as she rubbed her stomach gently. I look forward to finally meeting you, Naruto-chan. Tiamat thought before she leaned back as she began to hum a different tune. Kurama grumbled from within Naruto's mindscape, opening a single eye as he saw 2 large western dragons laying in front of him. One was red, the other one was white. Another thing, Naruto's mindscape no longer resembled an empty void with ankle-deep water, but a luxurious throne room. Naruto's subconscious was still unconscious, but he was now hunched forward in a throne chair. Kurama grumbled as he began to stretch before he began to wander around the new mindscape. This is certainly new, definitely a lot better than that sewer I was in before, Kurama thought as he walked past Albion and Ddraig, ignoring them for the time being. He also didn't want to disturb Naruto either. Something caught Kurama's eye as he glanced over towards what looked to be a bookshelf full of scrolls. Well, this is certainly interesting, Kurama said, raising an eyebrow as he began to scan the scrolls in awe. So, all these scrolls are abilities that the kid had learned throughout his life in the elemental nations? Well, that certainly is helpful, Kurama thought as he began to read through their names. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Rasengan, Futon, Wind Release, Senjutsu. Kurama frowned. A lot of the scrolls were blanks and only several of them had information in them. It makes me wonder how the kid made it this far with just these basic techniques. Well, Futon and Senjutsu are the 2 most recent ones, Kurama muttered before turning his attention to the large throne room doors as a smirk appeared on his face. Making his way over to the doors and pushing them open, Kurama's once somewhat enthusiastic expression changed to a deadpanned one. Outside of the throne room was Naruto's original mindscape, the endless void with ankle-deep water. Why am I not surprised? Kurama grumbled in thought as he turned his attention to a large pillow in the corner of the throne room. Kurama gained a fanged grin. I call dibs, Kurama declared mentally as he promptly fell over on the pillow and released a relaxed sigh. Kurama once again fell into a deep slumber, only this time for much longer than a few hours. Tiamat was standing in front of Ajuka Beelzebub's home, but everyone else called it his lair. Literally, Ajuka lived in an average American-style house. It was a single-story house which didn't seem impressive compared to all the mansions possessed by every other devil in the underworld. However, there was a massive laboratory built underneath the house where Ajuka spent most of his time in. I wonder how Ajuka will take the news of me being pregnant, Tiamat thought with a slight giggle. One would believe that the current Yondai Mao, 4 great Satans, Falbium Asmodeus, Ajuka Beelzebub, Seraphol Leviathan, and Syareoo Lucifer were just as cruel and twisted as the original 4 Mao, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. In fact, the 4 current Mao have not really shown that much interest in their positions as Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan, and Asmodeus. Syareoo, due to his laid-back nature and being a Siscon, has occasionally neglected his duties as Lucifer. However, Syareoo takes his job seriously when it comes to domestic affairs and ensuring the safety and longevity of devils everywhere. Ajuka has outright neglected his duties as Beelzebub, as he prefers to pursue his hobby of inventing. Although when push comes to shove, Ajuka will fulfill his role as Beelzebub when it comes to dealing with the old Satan faction and protecting the underworld. Seraphol, due to her childlike nature, she spends most of her time cosplaying rather than filling out paperwork in her office. Although she has been present during several important events that required foreign affairs, such as creating a temporary peace and truce with Heaven and Grigori after the events of the Great War. And finally, Falbium, who is the laziest person in the underworld, and stated on several occasions, working means losing. Therefore, the underworld's military has gotten lazy over the last couple of centuries. Though many would not admit it, but the other mythologies in the world preferred the new Yandai Mao over the old. Unfortunately, the direct descendants of the original Yandai Mao did not take too kindly to this, as this sparked a civil war in between the devil kind. But with Syareoo and Ajuka both being super devils with power that even exceeded the heavenly dragons in their prime, it's no wonder the anti-Satan faction defeated the old Satan faction. Tiamat shook her head, clearing her mind of any unnecessary thoughts as she proceeded to open the door to Ajuka's home, or cave as Syareoo and Seraphol called it. Tiamat sneered in disgust at seeing papers littering not only the floor but every bookshelf and table in sight. It's a wonder how he survived this long on his own. It's no wonder his parents kicked him out? The brunette thought to herself as she made her way over to an elevator. Sighing, Tiamat placed her finger against the down button on the elevator, however doing so activated an alarm system. "Go away, I'm busy right now," a soft voice called out from the speaker system above the elevator. Tiamat's eye twitched as she pounded on the elevator. "Listen here, you green-haired troll. You better let me down there or I'm going to incinerate this place," Tiamat yelled, showing her frustration as her voice was amplified by her draconic aura. Almost instantly a small camera poked out from in between the speaker system above the elevator. "Tiamat, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be on vacation?" Ajuka displayed his confusion through the intercom system, as he knew Tiamat hated being disturbed while she was on vacation away from the underworld. "Look, I need to come down and speak to you, it's important," Tiamat asked in a pleading tone, and instead of giving a reply, the elevator doors opened. Tiamat calmly walked in as she selected the button that would take her to Ajuka's laboratory. Most people would never consider making an underground mansion and placing a simple modern-day American house on top of it all. But seriously, descending 5 to 6 floors down just to talk to a single person was a little bit excessive. The doors opened, revealing a large white and black room, with multiple computers displaying different types of code, beakers and test tubes filled with various liquids, and various other types of equipment you would find in a laboratory. Standing in front of her was a bewitchingly beautiful and attractive young man appearing in his early 20s, with light blue eyes and green hair that is slicked back. He was wearing a pair of raggedy jeans, a simple black t-shirt which was under a large white lab coat. "So, Tiamat, what was it you wanted to talk to me about?" Unfortunately for Ajuka, he did not notice the mischievous glint in Tiamat's violet eyes. Tiamat gently stroked her slightly swollen stomach, which was barely noticeable at first glance. "Ajuka, Tiamat began playing off the ruse that she had just found out she was pregnant. Ajuka raised an eyebrow in confusion. The man was a recluse who barely spent any time outside of his house and laboratory. The current Beelzebub had never had a girlfriend before, nor had he ever been in a relationship with anyone. Sure, he had lost his virginity a couple centuries ago, and it was with Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love. "What is it? Come on, spit it out," Ajuka asked as his curiosity was now getting the better of him. "I'm pregnant." There was a pregnant pause, neither of them said a word. Now to say that Ajuka was confused was an understatement. He knew for a fact Tiamat had never, and I mean never, been in a relationship with anyone in her entire existence. "This makes no sense. She stated on multiple occasions that she was waiting for the perfect person to mate with. Who was it? Ajuka thought to himself as he was desperately trying to unravel this mystery. While on the outside Tiamat had the innocent but slightly embarrassed look, while on the inside she was laughing up a storm. Oh, this is going to be good. I can't wait to see how he reacts to this. She giggled. Ajuka, I know who the father is. Tiamat said in a timid voice. Ajuka's eyes lit up. Thanks Satan. Now I wonder who managed to knock her up. The current Beelzebub thought to himself, as he was relieved and even more curious on who this individual was. Really, now who is it? He asked, completely unaware of Tiamat's sinister grin. Why, you of course, Tilda. Aren't you excited you're going to be a daddy, Tilda? Tiamat exclaimed in a cheerful manner. Oh, my Sekiryu Shinte-sama, that face is priceless. The brunette thought to herself as she was laughing up a storm. Ajuka for his part had lost his composure, as his already pale skin turned paler, his eyes widened to the point where they looked like they were going to bug out. The man was gasping like a fish out of water as he could only point a shaking finger towards the Chaos Karma Dragon. WWWHWHHHH what? Ajuka screamed out in an uncharacteristic manner. At this point Tiamat had finally broken down and started laughing at her boss, who was now glaring at her. You think this is funny? No, I don't think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. I mean, you're always so uptight, I've never seen you laugh or freak out before. Tiamat said as she finally managed to calm herself down. But really, I have something very important to tell you now, don't interrupt me until I'm finished. Tiamat said as her attitude and expression changed to a serious one. After explaining everything that Great Red told her earlier, Ajuka was once again at a loss for words. I see, Ajuka said while running his fingers through his hair. That certainly is a lot to take in. Tiamat couldn't help but nod. And I know you don't want to hear this, but I believe it'd be a better idea if we played it off, that Naruto is our child, at least until he gets strong enough, that is. I don't think it would be a smart idea going around telling everyone that he is a spirit or a soul from another universe that was implanted into my womb by the Sekiryu Shinte-sama himself. And as much as Ajuka disliked the idea, he couldn't help but agree. What about Syareoo or Syareoo? He asked as Tiamat glared at him and shook her head. I wouldn't trust those two as far as I could throw them. Do you honestly think the two of them would be able to keep their mouths shut long enough for Naruto-chan to grow up and become stronger? Tiamat said as she had nothing against Syareoo or Syareoo, it's just that the two tended to accidentally leak important information when they get excited. Ajuka sighed as he did already feel a migraine forming. He knew this was true and couldn't help but agree. All right, we might as well tell Syareoo about our child. Ajuka sighed in defeat as he could already hear his friend congratulating him and Tiamat on finally hooking up. Syareoo, Graphia, Syareoo, and a semi-conscious Falbium were sitting, or Graphia's case standing across from Ajuka and Tiamat. So Ajuka, why have you called us all here? Syareoo asked. He was honestly happy to finally see his best friend after quite a while, but he was confused as to why Tiamat was here. Ajuka had only brought her to maybe 2 meetings in the past century, so please forgive the current Lucifer as his curiosity was now piqued. Ajuka-chan, why is Tiamat-chan here? I thought she was on her vacation? Syareoo asked. Well, Ajuka began as he swallowed the lump in his throat. Me and Tiamat have something important to tell you. Ajuka said as his cheeks were heating up as a faint blush could be seen. Tiamat gave a soft giggle, to which she received a glare from her pseudo-mate. Tiamat has recently informed me that she is pregnant with my child. Ajuka said quickly as he slammed his head into the table, releasing a small groan, not wanting to see the reactions of the other occupants in the room. Syareoo and Syareoo had a similar reaction as they both jumped up and cheered. Graphia's eyes widened in shock, while Falbium fell out of his chair due to both the startling announcement and Syareoo and Syareoo's loud cheers of joy. I knew you had it in you, Ajuka. I'm so proud of you. Syareoo declared proudly as he proceeded to jump across the table and dive-bomb his best friend to the floor. Syareoo followed suit as she dog-piled on top of her 2 friends. Graphia, who had finally composed herself, could only glare at her buffoon of a husband as her eye twitched at his childishness. Falbium, who had finally pulled himself off the floor and was back in a sitting position, he seemed to be studying Tiamat very closely. Something doesn't add up here? Neither one of them have shown any interest in each other? But I'll let this play out for now. The current Asmodeus thought, despite the man's laziness he truly cared about his friends and comrades very deeply. Ajuka, who had finally had enough. All right, enough. Ajuka roared, releasing a large amount of demonic aura, knocking Syareoo and Syareoo off him as he stood up. This is something I want to keep in between the six of us. If I find out one of you leaked any of this information out, I will blast you into oblivion. Ajuka shouted, showing his annoyance, which took everyone by surprise. Even the stoic Graphia and lazy Falbium were taken back by the calmest member of the current Yandai Mao. What? Ajuka actually yelled at us. Is the world coming to an end? Syareoo and Syareoo thought in perfect unison with one another. Because seriously, Ajuka, the cave dweller, the calmest and nicest person in the underworld, just yelled at them. Am I understood? Ajuka declared, releasing more of his demonic aura as the two childish members of the Yandai Mao hugged each other and nodded furiously. Good, the current Beelzebub said before turning around and leaving, wanting nothing more than to get back to his laboratory. Tiamat watched her pseudo-mate walk away with a look of pure lust in her eyes. Wow, I never knew Ajuka was capable of being so assertive. It makes me feel all hot and bothered. You'd better be careful, Ajuka, otherwise, you might actually become a father very soon. Tiamat thought as blush dusted her cheeks as she followed after Ajuka. Not even 10 seconds after Ajuka and Tiamat left, Syareoo and Syareoo began jumping up and down with joy again. I can't believe it. Ajuka is finally going to have a kid that we can spoil. Syareoo declared proudly as comical anime tears poured down from his eyes. Syareoo was also excited, and if their child ends up being a boy, we can set up an arranged marriage in between him and Rias Tan and So Tan Tilda. Syareoo cheered. Yeah, that way I can finally break this stupid marriage contract in between Rias and Riser. Syareoo said with fire in his eyes. Graphia stared at the duo with a look of disapproval. Falbium noticed Graphia's expression before he decided to speak. You know Syareoo, Syareoo. Falbium said, getting both the current Lucifer and Leviathan's attention. You shouldn't be trying to set up an arranged marriage in between an unborn child and two children who are only a mere month old. How do you know that they like each other? You don't know that for all you know Ajuka and Tiamat's child could be a girl? And suppose it is a boy, what if he wants to be in a relationship with someone else but he's forced to marry two girls he doesn't like? Did the two of you even think about that? Falbium stated, causing the room to go silent. Graphia gave the laziest Satan a look of approval. I must agree with Asmodeus-sama on this one, Lucifer-sama. You shouldn't go off and get greedy like your parents did with Rias-sama. It's best to let these things work out on their own, then force it upon them and cause them to hate each other. Graphia stated, which caused Syareoo to pout, but she understood you couldn't force love on someone. But Graphia-chan, I have a feeling that they would be true lovers. Syareoo declared as he imagined, a blue-green-haired boy and a redhead girl laying together in bed sharing a kiss. Syareoo let out a satisfied sigh, as he had an expression on his face which was plain creepy. His eyes were all watery, he had blush on his face, and he had a creepy-ass grin. Graphia sighed as her eyebrow twitched. Glaring at her husband and master, she slowly walked up to him before grabbing his cheek and yanking it hard. Graphia, wet go. Dat hupwithers. There, I'm glad I got your attention, Lucifer-sama. It is time for you to go back and finish the rest of your paperwork. The Queen of Annihilation stated in a professional manner as she finally let go of Syareoo's cheek as he began to rub it vigorously. Come on, Graphia-chan, I can do the paperwork later, let's go have some fun. Syareoo said before he shrank back at the glare his wife sent him. I cannot let you do that, Lucifer-sama. Do I need to punish you? Graphia said in a sickly sweet tone as a sadistic smirk began to form on her face. Syareoo shivered in fear before he shakily answered. Would you look at the time? I guess I better get back to my office and finish my paperwork. Syareoo squeaked before preparing a magic circle to teleport him and Graphia out. The current Asmodeus shook his head. That baka will never learn. Falbium muttered to himself as Syareoo giggled. Tiamat had a smirk on her face as Ajuka was scowling at how Syareoo and Syareoo had reacted to the news of his and Tiamat's child. I think that went fairly well, don't you agree, Ajuka-kun tilde? Tiamat said with a gentle smile, as Ajuka rolled his eyes. That's easy for you to say, you're not the one who got tackled to the floor. But I believe we got our point across. And I have a feeling that Syareoo is going to do something very stupid, and I'm going to have to beat him for it. Ajuka grumbled before glancing at Tiamat as he watched her gently stroked her slightly swollen stomach. A small smile appeared on the current Beelzebub's lips. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. I've never seen her so happy before. Hell, I don't even remember the last time she smiled? Ajuka thought to himself. Tiamat? Yes? I've been thinking, when Naruto is born. I wanted to know, are you going to tell him the truth about the Apocalypse Dragon? Or will you tell him that I'm his father? Tiamat blinked in confusion as she noticed the confused and slightly hopeful look on Ajuka's face. Quickly smiling, the Chaos Karma Dragon answered. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but for right now I believe the best course of action is if we act like a married couple. I know you're not looking for a long-term relationship, but… Tiamat paused as she was grabbed by Ajuka, who is gently holding her shoulders. I know this is sudden, but… Ajuka took a deep breath as he calmed his mind. Would you like to go out on a date? Ajuka asked, unable to meet her gaze. Tiamat was taken back by surprise as her cheeks heated up, turning a bright pink. Quickly scowling and shaking her head, getting rid of any unnecessary thoughts. Yes, I would like that, Tiamat said with a slight giggle. Ajuka couldn't help but smile, and for some reason he couldn't help but thank the Great Red for this opportunity. It had been 9 months since Ajuka and Tiamat had officially started dating one another. And sure, it was a little bit rocky at first as neither one of them had any idea what the hell they were doing. Of course, Syareoo took it upon herself to help Tiamat as much as she could, while Syareoo offered to help Ajuka. Things were going smoothly until yesterday morning. Tiamat's water finally broke and the baby was coming. Ajuka nearly lost his mind, but with a quick slap to the head from Tiamat and the current Beelzebub teleported them to the nearest hospital. And a few hours later Tiamat gave birth to a healthy young boy, who had bright cerulean blue eyes and pale blue hair. The whole ordeal left Tiamat exhausted, but she couldn't be happier as she cradled her son, who was nestled into her chest. Smiling at her son and gently stroking his whiskered cheek and planting a small kiss on his forehead. Sleep well, my son, because you're going to have one hectic life, I can feel it, she whispered as she glanced to her left and saw her mate asleep in the chair next to her. Rolling her eyes at Ajuka, who is leaning to the side, honestly, the man could create a method to turn humans into devils, and yet he fainted when seeing his son been brought into this world. Shaking her head and smiling, she wouldn't change anything about Ajuka. He was different, and that's why she liked him so much. To say Tiamat was happy would be the understatement of the year. In truth, the Chaos Karma Dragon was happier than she had ever been in her entire existence. She cherished every moment she had with Naruto, because she knew it wouldn't be long until he was fully grown. And she dreaded the day Naruto would finally find a mate and get married. She would personally incinerate any female of any species that she deemed unworthy of her son. Ajuka felt like the third wheel in this strange little family that had developed over the past year. He loved Naruto like a son, but this whole thing confused him. Here was a man who could ace any test, and could develop any type of technology, and was considered one of the smartest minds in the supernatural world, right behind Yahweh, biblical God, and Azazel. But when it came to childcare, he was lost. He had lost count on how many times Tiamat had yelled at him for treating Naruto as if he was an invention instead of a living being. And he couldn't help but feel jealous when Syareoo could get Naruto to laugh, and all he could do was make the boy either cry or poop his pants. However, today was different. Syareoo had asked Tiamat to accompany her on her trip to Kyoto to meet with Amaterasu-sama and Yasaka-sama. Apparently, a new terrorist organization consisting of the old Satan faction, stray fallen angels and rogue exercises, and sacred gear-wielding humans. However, Yasaka suggested either an alliance with Heaven or the Grigori, but much to the Kyuubi's surprise, Amaterasu suggested the devils. Tiamat had no idea why Syareoo wanted her to join her for the negotiation terms for an alliance in between the underworld, Kyoto's Yukai faction, and Takamagahara. Syareoo simply stated that Naruto was just insurance, which only caused the Dragon King to growl. Her precious little Naruto-kun was not some item to use to form an alliance. He was her only son, and she'd be damned if anyone would ever use him against her. Syareoo was wearing a bright pink kimono, with various designs and colors that were sewn into the fabric. She walked well more like skipped through the streets of Kyoto, while humming a cheerful tune. Walking behind her at a slower pace was Tiamat, who is dressed in a royal blue kimono, And unlike Seraph's, who looked like an epileptic's worst nightmare, hers was much more normal. And in her arms Naruto was wearing a mini kimono that consisted of golden yellow and cerulean blue. The young brunette was a bundle of energy that could bring light to the darkest of people. "Come on, Tia-chan tilde. We're going to be late at this rate." The current Leviathan called out to the Chaos Karma Dragon, who glared back. "Seraphol, we're not going to be late, we still got time to spare." Seraphol pouted at Tiamat. "You don't have to be such a stick in the mud. We're going to be late for being early tilde." Tiamat just sighed. There was no point in arguing with the current Leviathan, it would only cause her a greater headache. Tiamat then noticed everyone was staring at them, both tourists and locals alike. "I'm so going to kill this chibi Satan. She's humiliating both of us in public and she doesn't even seem to care." The brunette thought in a sinister manner. Tiamat's eyes softened, as she observed not only the architecture but the various shrines that were scattered throughout the beautiful city of Kyoto. "I wouldn't mind moving here, if it weren't for Ajuka-kun's status as Beelzebub. I would consider asking him to move here. It's peaceful, and the people here are nice too, unlike the underworld and all those greedy devils." Tiamat thought as she glanced down at her son, who was laughing cheerfully and clapping his hands together. This brought a smile to Tiamat's face. Whenever her son would either laugh or smile, he would always brighten up her day, no matter how crappy it could have been. Seraphol sent Tiamat a smile, not a fake one but a genuine one. The current Leviathan was truly happy for the Chaos Karma Dragon and her friend Ajuka. They both deserved happiness and love, but that left the question, would she ever find love? Seraphol frowned. "No matter where I look, people never seem to want to be in a relationship with me. I know I act childish, but I can't help but it. It's just who I am. And to make matters worse, people only want to be around me so they can have with me." Seraphol sighed as her eyes lost their luster for a split second. "Seraphol, do remember where Amaterasu and Yasaka wanted to meet us?" Tiamat's question snapped Seraphol out of her thoughts. "Oh, Seraphol tapped her finger against her chin. "I believe they wanted to meet us at the Imperial Palace?" The strongest female devil thought aloud. "Or was it a tea shop?" Tiamat's eye twitched. "Don't you think this would be important information to know, or are you just coming up with this stuff on the fly?" Tiamat asked, obviously annoyed with her travel companion. "Ma, you make it sound like I'm an idiot?" Seraphol huffed as she crossed her arms underneath her large bust, glaring at the Dragon King. Tiamat growled in response, as her pupils shifted from round to slits. Her body was giving off a cold feeling. "I might be inclined to agree." Seraphol looked hurt by the Dragon King's comment. And before she could retort, a voice made itself known. "Leviathan-sama, and the Chaos Karma Dragon?" Turning towards the voice, they were greeted by a young man with pale skin, red eyes, and black hair, and was dressed like a mountain hermit. "Greetings, my name is Jin, and I'm here to escort you to the Imperial Palace. I was expecting you to arrive at the train station, but when you didn't, it took me a while to seek you out," Jin explained in a gentle tone. Tiamat stared at the man before her. She deduced that this man was a Karasu Tengu. "There's no reason to apologize, Jin, it was this Baka's fault. That's why you didn't meet us at the train station," Tiamat said while gesturing towards Seraphol, who looked like she had been slapped. Raising an eyebrow, Jin couldn't help but glance at the current Leviathan. "Well, what is done is done. Come, Amaterasu-sama and Yasaka-hime are awaiting your arrival." Jin gestured for them to follow. Tiamat gently laid Naruto down in a crib within the meeting room of the Imperial Palace within the West Yukai faction territory. Tiamat smiled down at her son, who was laying next to Yasaka's daughter Kuno, who is adorable in her opinion. Turning around and making her way towards Seraphol, who is sitting across from Amaterasu and Yasaka. Amaterasu was a black-haired beauty, with straight silk hair held by a golden tiara with blue sapphires embedded in it. Her face was elegantly shaped. The shapes of her eyes were perfectly oriental, but had a hawk-like sharpness to them, thick long lashes that shadowed her eyes. Her gaze, well, to be more specific, her irises were like molten gold. Her soft small lips pressed into a thin line. She wore a beautiful ceremonial silk red and white kimono, held in place by a pink sash and black obi. Yasaka had long golden, blonde hair and matching eyes, with a voluptuous figure, 9 golden foxtails and matching ears. Her attire is a traditional Miko outfit and tall geta with white tabi. The sleeves of her haori feature a giant red star-shaped pentagram, surrounded by 5 smaller pentagrams in between the points. I'm glad that you made it, Leviathan Dono, and I must say I'm honestly surprised that you came along, Chaos Karma Dragon. Amaterasu said as she took a sip of tea. Seraph's once cheerful expression was replaced by a serious one. Amaterasu Dono, thank you for giving us this opportunity to forge an alliance with you and Yasaka-sama, Seraphal said while bowing her head slightly. Amaterasu smiled. There's no need to be so formal with me, Seraphal-san. I know it's not your style. Amaterasu couldn't help but giggle when she saw the current Leviathan breathed a sigh of relief. Amaterasu's cheerful expression turned to a serious one. I also wanted to talk to you about this terrorist organization that has been growing over the past few decades. They had been launching attacks on not only the East and West Yukai factions, but also have most recently attacked the Greek and Norse factions as well. I tried reaching out to both, but Zeus, being a prideful, paranoid asshole that he refused us quite harshly. In Odin, well, let's just say me and him don't get along too well after our last meeting. Tiamat and Seraphal both shared Amaterasu's dislike for Zeus, as the man was not only a whore but also one of the biggest hypocrites in the supernatural world. Do you know any of the members of this terrorist organization, Amaterasu-san? Seraphal asked, hoping to get to the bottom of this. Yasaka glanced at Amaterasu, who nodded. Well, Leviathan-sama, we only know 3 of their members so far. And I believe you're all too familiar with these 3. Kateria Leviathan, Kroizari Asmodeus, and Shalba Beelzebub. Yasaka spat their names out with such venom which caused everyone in the room to flinch. Amaterasu knew Yasaka held hatred for the old Satan faction, for the death of her late husband and the father of her daughter Kuno, Rokai Kenchigo, an ex-exorcist. Amaterasu watched the reactions of both Seraphal and Tiamat carefully. Tiamat scowled at the mention of the original Yandai Mao's descendants, while Seraphal shook her head in disappointment. I'm sorry for any problems that they've caused you both. They have been nothing but trouble since losing the civil war a century and a half ago. I never knew they would take things this far. We'll help you in any way that we possibly can. Seraphal apologized to Yasaka and Amaterasu. Amaterasu nodded lightly. Although I'm surprised Rizevim Levon Lucifer didn't join in the fray? Amaterasu asked, honestly curious as to where the son of Lucifer was. This gained a confused look from Tiamat and a slightly pleased expression from Seraphal. At least that monster didn't cause any trouble, yet. To be completely honest, he vanished slightly before the civil war happened. No one has seen him since, as he's shown very little interest in the underworld or the Lucifer position. He predicted that we would win the civil war even if he did join the old Satan faction. And he laughed at Kateria, Kroizari, and Shalba, calling them foolish for pursuing their parents' positions of power. Seraphal elaborated further. This seemed to calm Yasaka down somewhat as her scowl turned into a frown. I'm not letting your kind turn my people into slaves, Yasaka stated while Seraphal had no intention of asking about that. You have nothing to fear, Yasaka-chan. As the current Leviathan, I will ensure that none of your people are turned into devils. Unless they wish for it to happen. Seraphal offered while Amaterasu nodded. That is fair, don't you think so, Yasaka-chan? Yasaka nodded as she now had a calmer expression. I do have another thing I would like to bring up. A possible marriage contract in between a member from the underworld and a member from either the Yukai or Shinto faction? Amaterasu offered as Tiamat gained a more serious expression, while Seraphal gained a more thoughtful one. Yasaka also listened in closely, curious on who would marry who. I have a suggestion, Tilda. Seraphal announced cheerfully, which caused the sun goddess to smile, as Tiamat and Yasaka began to feel impending doom closing in on them. Do you now, Seraphal-san? Well, let's hear your suggestion? Amaterasu sounded a little too eager for Yasaka's liking. I suggest the marriage contract in between Naruto-chan, the son of Tiamat the Chaos Karma Dragon and Ajuka Beelzebub, and Kuno, the daughter of Yasaka and the late Rokai Kenchigo Tilda. Seraphal replied as Amaterasu smiled at the idea, while Yasaka and Tiamat stared at each other with a feeling of dread filling both of them. Amaterasu-sama, you can't be considering this. Yasaka demanded. Amaterasu glanced at Yasaka with a sad expression. I know you may not like this right now, Yasaka, but this could prove to be beneficial towards this alliance. Amaterasu stated as Yasaka narrowed her eyes. Tiamat glaring at the current Leviathan, before she hatched an idea. Amaterasu-san, I have a suggestion? Amaterasu turned towards the Dragon King with a delicate eyebrow raised. Amaterasu then gestured for Tiamat to continue, while Yasaka stared at the dragon with her heated gaze. I suggest we should not make this marriage contract absolute. Instead, we should see if our children actually do have feelings towards one another. That way, if they do, this marriage will be genuine instead of forced. And even if our children don't marry, I'm sure someone else could fill the role for them. Tiamat said, hoping to save her precious Naruto from a possible loveless marriage. Amaterasu seemed to smile at this idea. I believe that could definitely work, as I don't want the children to be stuck in a loveless marriage. As I know personally how much grief that can cause you. Amaterasu replied as Yasaka sent the Chaos Karma Dragon an appreciative nod. Syareoo couldn't help but smile, as she couldn't believe that Tiamat managed to steal her idea. Well, technically wasn't her idea, she just remembered what Falbium told her, when Syareoo tried to set up Naruto with Rias. I believe this will be the beginning of a wonderful partnership and alliance, Syareoo-san. Amaterasu extended a hand to the current Leviathan, who graciously took it and shook hands. Yasaka walked towards Tiamat. The two mothers stared into each other's eyes almost as if they were gauging each other. For your sake I hope this works, because if your son hurts my daughter I will kill him. Yasaka whispered, to which Tiamat retorted. The same goes to you, Vixen. Syareoo glanced into the crib as she smiled. Hey, Tiamat-chan, Yasaka-chan, come and look at this. Syareoo called out to the two mothers. Making their way over to the crib, they couldn't help but coo at what they saw. Both Naruto and Kuno were hugging each other, as they seemed to be enjoying each other's embrace. Despite only being infants, they seemed to have already sparked a connection in between one another. Amaterasu smiled at the scene before her. It seems they've already taken a liking to each other. Amaterasu giggled into her hand. You two might be mother-in-laws very soon, so I guess the two of you will have to get used to one another. Amaterasu joked slightly while Syareoo couldn't help but giggle as well. Sadly enough, Yasaka and Tiamat simply glared at one another, sending out childish death threats which causing the leader of the Shinto faction and the current Leviathan to simply sweat drop. Amaterasu leaned down and whispered into Syareoo's ear. I also don't want there to be any secrets in between us, Syareoo. And please do inform Syareoo that I wish to meet with him in a week's time in Kuo town. Amaterasu whispered to the current Leviathan, who nodded in response. I'll be sure to inform Syareoo-chan. Syareoo replied. Ajuka had a worried expression as he paced back and forth. Syareoo simply watched his friend with a concerned expression. While Graphia was off enjoying a nice long soak in a hot tub. Today was her day off and she wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. Falbium was also observing Ajuka through a half-cracked open eye as he had his head laying on the table. Ajuka calmed down. I'm sure Tiamat and Naruto will be fine, remember, Syareoo is with them. Syareoo reassured his friend, who simply grumbled in response. I can't help it, Syareoo, I've grown attached to both of them. I can't help but worry. Ajuka replied. And that's all well and good, but could you please stop pacing back and forth before you put a hole in the floor? Ajuka didn't reply. He didn't even seem to notice Syareoo's plea, as he continued pacing. Just sit down and relax, Ajuka, they'll be fine. The lazy voice of Falbium made itself known. Syareoo glanced towards his friend before smiling. Falbium, I honestly thought you were asleep? The current Asmodeus snorted in amusement before laying his head back down. A pale blue magic circle appeared on the floor. Catching the attention of the three, Mao glanced towards it, recognizing that it was Syareoo's magic circle. Ajuka released a sigh of relief, as Tiamat holding Naruto, and Syareoo stepped out from the magic circle before it vanished. We're back, Tilda. Syareoo declared cheerfully, as Tiamat walked towards Ajuka with Naruto in her arms. Syareoo interlocked his fingers as he gained a serious expression. So Syareoo, how did the negotiations go for an alliance with Takamagahara and Kyoto? Syareoo looked at the current Lucifer as she gave a cheerful smile and gave him a thumbs up. We're officially allies now, of course we have a couple of guidelines we have to abide by. Syareoo smiled as he clapped his hands together. Wonderful, let's hear them. Falbium sat up as he too was curious on what these guidelines were. While Ajuka sat down next to Tiamat, as Naruto was sound asleep in her arms. Well, for one, no devils are allowed to forcefully reincarnate any members of the Shinto or Yukai faction without their consent. And there is to be no secrets in between us, as Amaterasu wishes to meet with you Syareoo in a week's time in Kuo town to further discuss the details of this alliance. And finally, there is to be a marriage in between a member of the underworld and a member from either Takamagahara or Kyoto. Syareoo revealed. I suggested a marriage in between Naruto-chan and Kuno, the daughter of Yasaka. And Tiamat also suggested that this marriage contract shouldn't be absolute, and if either Naruto or Kuno don't harbor any feelings for one another and they find their true loves, the marriage can be called off. Syareoo said while Falbium smirked. If only the higher-ups could learn that marriage contracts only work 10% of the time. Then maybe the number of pure-blooded devils would increase. The current Asmodeus thought before glancing at Ajuka, who seemed to be a bit annoyed. I believe that's a wonderful idea. A marriage contract that is not absolute and can be broken off if the individuals are not interested in one another. Falbium stated before glancing at Syareoo and giving him a smug grin. Your parents and the Phoenix family could learn a thing or two from Tiamat. Syareoo didn't reply as he was crying anime tears. His dreams of Naruto and Rias being together had been destroyed by his best friend and his best friend's wife. Well, moving on, did they say anything else? Ajuka said, not wanting to deal with Syareoo's stupidity right now. Syareoo's once cheerful expression turned serious. Yasaka's late husband Rokai Kenchigo, an ex-exorcist, was murdered by members of the old Satan faction. More specifically Kateria Leviathan, Kroizuri Asmodeus, and Shalba Beelzebub. But thankfully Rizevim Levon Lucifer had nothing to do with it, at least from what we know now. Syareoo stated. This snapped Syareoo out of his little depression as he clenched his fists tightly. Those three won't leave well enough alone. I know we should have killed them when we had the chance. Syareoo cursed himself for not having the balls to kill them a century and a half ago during the Civil War. Syareoo, there is no point in beating yourself up over it. All you can do is learn from your mistakes. Ajuka stated calmly, while Syareoo and Falbium both nodded in agreement with Ajuka. So how did Yasaka react to the marriage contract? Ajuka asked Tiamat, who simply scowled at the mention of the Kitsune woman. Both Yasaka and Tiamat were sending each other death threats and glaring at each other. Although Naruto-chan and Kuno were hugging each other in the crib, it's almost as if they're soulmates. Syareoo declared cheerfully while Syareoo grumbled under his breath. Ajuka snickered at the scowl on Tiamat's face. I don't think it's that bad, Tiamat, just give Kuno a chance. The current Beelzebub pleaded. This caused Tiamat to send her mate a heated glare. I have nothing against Kuno, she's nothing but a hatchling. I'm just worried that damn vixen might do something to our son. Tiamat corrected herself. Trust me, everything will be fine. I promise you that, and maybe you and Yasaka may become good friends in the future. Although only time will tell. Ajuka said before kissing Tiamat on the cheek. Ajuka was thankful for many things throughout his life, and one of them was his immense amounts of demonic power and stamina for one thing. And the last thing he wanted to happen right now is to get dragged into another session of hate fucking. It left him raw for days. Days, I tell ya. Ajuka-kun? Ajuka raised an eyebrow as he noticed blush developing on Tiamat's cheeks. Unconsciously swallowing the lump in his throat, Ajuka decided to speak. Why yes, Tiamat? He nervously replied as the other three Mao just watched the interactions between the current Beelzebub and the Chaos Karma Dragon with interest. Perhaps I can put Naruto-kun to bed and we can spend the rest of the night together. She said softly while drawing circles on Ajuka's chest. Ajuka's eyes shrank in fear. He had unconsciously signed his death warrant. Sending a pleading look to his three friends, unfortunately doing so caused his whole being to fill with dread. Syareoo gave an encouraging smile. Falbium, with his head laying on the table, gave his friend a thumbs up, while Syareoo gave him a shit-eating grin. They're not even trying to help me. What kind of friends are they? Do they understand what's about to happen to me? Ajuka cried in thought. Tiamat stood up holding Naruto with one arm as she grabbed Ajuka's hand and proceeded to drag him out of the room. Well, it was nice knowing him, Syareoo said in an all-too-cheerful tone. This is what you get for pacing back and forth on my beautiful carpets, Ajuka. Syareoo thought sinisterly. I almost feel bad for the poor bastard. Almost. Falbium chuckled softly. I can't help but agree, I recognize that look anywhere. Syareoo said, gently tapping her finger against her chin. Well, I hope so. You're a woman after all. I've never seen a man with that look before, and I hope I never do. Although I do know his pain right now. As Grafia has given me that same look many times. Oh, the things she did to me would leave you horrified. Syareoo said nonchalantly as he noticed his two friends' eyes widened in fear. What's wrong with you guys? Syareoo asked cluelessly as Syareoo was gasping like a fish out of water, while Falbium almost robotically pointed at Syareoo or something behind him, raising an eyebrow in confusion, until an all too familiar killer intent filled the room. Now Syareoo was sweating bullets as he robotically turned his head to look behind him. There standing in her full glory, his queen, maid, and most importantly his wife Grafia Lucifuge. And judging by the look on her face, she wasn't happy, as she was glaring daggers at her buffoon of a husband. GG Grafia, how are you doing, my darling wife? Syareoo said, well, more like squeaked, before Grafia grabbed him by the cheek and yanked hard. Grafia, wet go, dat hup with theirs. Grafia glared at her husband as a sinister sadistic smirk spread across her lips. Zex-kun, please don't speak of what we do in our bedroom to others, Tilda. Okay, Tilda, she said cutely as she began to drag Syareoo out of the room. Swafal, fob wm, hwlpmw. Syareoo cried for help but was greeted by his two friends waving goodbye. Nuwu. As soon as the door closed and Syareoo's cries for help became weaker and weaker, Falbium glanced at his fellow Satan. Let's never speak of this again to anyone. Agreed. 6 years had passed since the initial meeting in between Syareoo, Tiamat and Amaterasu, and Yasaka. And it started out a bit rocky, mainly because Yasaka and Tiamat were always at each other's throats, ready to start a fight at any moment. However, Naruto and Kuno quickly became best friends as they were always around each other. And another interesting note, they were both born on the same exact day, September 9th, which made it convenient, as they shared a conjoint birthday. Syareoo. Yes, I know Naruto's birthday is October 10th. However, when he was reborn through Tiamat, he was born on September 9th. Syareoo and Amaterasu further discussed the alliance, and Amaterasu gave Syareoo the rights to Kuo town, as proof of their alliance. And this also allowed the devils to travel through Shinto territory without causing too much conflict if they informed either Syareoo or Amaterasu. And today was a very special day, in fact it was September 9th. Syareoo always enjoyed spending time with the two little bundles of joy, Naruto and Kuno. Happy birthday Naruto-chan, Kuno-chan. Syareoo squealed with joy while taking a picture of a small blue-haired boy with whisker marks on his cheeks. And a little girl with blonde hair held back in a ponytail who was wearing a mini shrine maiden outfit. Today was Naruto and Kuno's 7th birthday. They were both smiling as they loved their Aunt Sarah, which Syareoo instructed the children to call her. Yasaka had come to enjoy Naruto's company, as the boy was an endless ball of energy, and she couldn't bring herself to harm the boy in any shape, way or form. Tiamat found Kuno adorable and would never cause the girl any harm. Amaterasu always stopped by to visit on Naruto and Kuno's birthday, and just like Syareoo, she got the kids to call her Aunt Ami. Amaterasu turned her attention to Yasaka and Tiamat, who were both smiling at Naruto and Kuno as they continued to play with Syareoo. It seems the two of you are no longer at each other's throats, Tilda. Amaterasu asked the two mothers, who couldn't help but huff in annoyance at the sun goddess, who giggled in response. As much as I hate to admit, Yasaka began while sending Tiamat a small glare. You are right, we have been getting along far better than we used to. Yasaka added softly. Tiamat nodded in agreement as she sighed. It's true, I enjoyed being in Kyoto far more than being in the underworld. And if it weren't for Ajuka-kun's position as Beelzebub, I would move here in a heartbeat. Tiamat said with a smile. Ajuka, who was sitting next to Tiamat, rolled his eyes. There's nothing you can do about it, Tiamat. And I highly doubt anyone would want my job anyways. Plus, you must factor in, who in their right mind would want to deal with Syareoo 24/7? Ajuka replied to his wife, who glared at him. Now don't get me wrong, Ajuka loves Syareoo, as your slightly slow, goofy, and annoying younger brother who you would not introduce to your friends. I know for a fact Syareoo is going to catch wind of my little comment and will make my life a living hell. Ajuka thought to himself. Amaterasu giggled before making her way over towards Syareoo, who just pulled out the kid's birthday cake. Blow out the candles and make a wish, you too. Syareoo said to the kids, who immediately blew out the candle with a smile still on their face. Kuno turned to Naruto with a cute look on her face. What did you wish for? Kuno asked her closest friend Naruto, who shook his head. It's a secret. If I told you it won't come true, remember? Naruto told the girl, who just puffed her cheeks and glared at Naruto. Please, I wouldn't tell anyone, I promise. Kuno used her puppy dog eyes technique, but Naruto simply crossed his arms, looked away while shaking his head. Nope, but you can tell me yours if you want. Naruto said, but Kuno did the exact same thing Naruto did to her. No, Kuno said, gaining laughter from everyone who was watching the scene with amusement. Ajuka couldn't help but chuckle as he pulled out what seemed to be a medium-sized box. Tiamat's eyes widened before glancing at Ajuka with a look of disbelief. Don't you think Naruto-kun is a little too young for a set of evil pieces? Upon hearing this, Yasaka's eyes narrowed but remained quiet. Ajuka shook his head as he chuckled. Who said anything about giving Naruto a set of evil pieces? Oh no, Tiamat, my dear. This is something far different, my newest creation, and I'm trying to develop one for Kuno as well. Ajuka said, which caused the two mothers to look at each other in confusion. Taking the lid off the box, there was a set of chest pieces, but at closer inspection they were cerulean blue with gems embedded in them. These are dragon pieces, giving Naruto the ability to reincarnate someone as a dragon. And unlike evil pieces, Naruto can reincarnate a god-class being with them. Ajuka said with a smile, as Yasaka and Tiamat were dumbfounded by this. And as for Kuno, I'm thinking about Kitsune pieces, but I have no genetic material to base them off. Ajuka said with a slight pout. However, I'm still not finished with the dragon pieces yet. And I was hoping to possibly have both Naruto's dragon pieces and Kuno's Kitsune pieces done at the exact same time. I think it will be a sweet 16th birthday gift for them. Ajuka thought aloud. You seriously made a way for Naruto to turn people into dragons? Are we talking about full-blooded dragons or humanoid dragons? Tiamat asked, more curious now. Ajuka gained a thoughtful expression. To be completely honest, I don't know. I would say probably humanoid dragons to be safe. But you never know, they might be able to turn someone into a full-blooded dragon. Yasaka then decided to speak. You said you needed genetic material, does it matter what it is? And could you make me a set of these Kitsune pieces if possible? Yasaka asked, as Kitsune were endangered, especially Kyuubi's, a rare subspecies of Kitsune. Ajuka glanced at the blonde-haired vixen before nodding. Yes, I believe I could, and as for genetic material, a few strands of hair would be more than enough. Ajuka replied with a smirk. He always loved a challenge and inventing new things. Perhaps we should discuss this later, as I believe we're missing out on a birthday party. Ajuka stated as he loved birthday cake and enjoyed the look of joy on Naruto and Kuno's faces when they opened their gifts. Yasaka and Tiamat looked at one another before smiling as they nodded before making their way towards Naruto and Kuno. Amaterasu was entertaining the children with her celestial body magic, creating small stars, while Syareoo, not wanting to be outdone, was creating crystals of ice. The sound of laughter could be heard from the empty playground that was half a mile away from the Imperial Palace. Kuno and Naruto were both swinging back and forth on a pair of swings, with an expression of pure joy marrying their faces. They always came here when their parents had meetings with one another, that way they wouldn't cause any trouble and get scolded. One would believe that these children were playing on the playground without any adult supervision. At least this is what average humans would believe, but any being that had enhanced sensory abilities would be able to detect several signatures watching from the shadows. Yasaka would never let her daughter out of her sight without several guards watching her to ensure her safety. It had been a little more than a month since Naruto and Kuno celebrated their birthdays together, and ever since that day they had been spending even more time with one another. Nothing UAL, as they are only 7 years old, for crying out loud. Naruto-kun. Yeah, Kuno-chan? I don't want this day to ever end. Kuno said with a cute expression. Naruto blinked before an all too familiar foxy grin appeared. Yeah, I totally agree. We've had lots of fun today and I hope it never ends too. Naruto said. Tag, you're it. Kuno said as she gently tapped Naruto on the shoulder before jumping off the swing. Naruto sprung off the swing and began chasing after Kuno as the two laughed. I'm gonna get you, Kuno-chan. Mark my words, Naruto retorted while laughing. You'll never catch me. Naruto was now even more determined to catch Kuno. Meanwhile, all the guards that were watching over the two boundless balls of energy couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. Kuno looking behind her, Naruto was gaining on her and quickly, and just as she turned her head back to look in front of her, she ran into something. It was something sturdy and strong. The impact sent Kuno to the ground. Owie! Kuno whined as Naruto caught up to Kuno as he glared at the man standing in front of them. Oi, what's the big idea just appearing out of nowhere like that? Naruto yelled at the man before the two Ukai guards appeared directly in between Kuno and Naruto and the mysterious man. Who are you? Identify yourself. One of the two guards declared, getting into a fighting position, while the second guard did the same. The mysterious man appeared as a middle-aged man in his 40s with shoulder-length spiky dark silver hair, a small beard and hazel eyes. The man was wearing Mao Lucifer attire, which was dark silver in color. The man had a cruel smirk on his face as he stared at the two guards in front of him. Kukakuku. The man chuckled before pouting like a child. I see no one remembers me, it's so sad. Well, I might as well remind you who I am. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Rizevim Levon Lucifer. The man said before crossing one arm behind his back and the other in front of him before bowing. The descendant of Lucifer, one of the guards whispered out as his legs began to tremble. The second guard turned to Naruto and Kuno before yelling, "Get to the Imperial Palace now," not only startling the children but also making Rizevim frown a bit before his smirk returned full force. There's no reason to send them away so soon. I just came here to play a few games with them, is that so bad? Rizevim said cheerfully before one of the guards charged at him. Wasting no time, Rizevim caught the guard by the neck before applying necessary force and demonic power to his hand, crushing the guard's throat, ending his life. The sickening sound of not only the guard's neck but also throat being crushed was sickening. Kuno dropped to her knees as she was trembling in fear. Naruto wasn't doing much better as he felt sick to his stomach. The other guard just stood there shocked. His colleague and best friend had just been killed in front of him with no effort whatsoever. Turning to the children one last time. Kunoheim, Naruto-sama, run now, he yelled before getting blasted through the chest by a condensed beam of demonic power. Now that these two nuisances are out of the way, we can play. Rizevim declared cheerfully as he turned his sights on Naruto and Kuno. Almost instinctively, Naruto grabbed Kuno's hand and began to run as fast as he could. Normally Naruto would have been more considerate of Kuno, but he needed to get them out of there as fast as he could. Rizevim had a frustrated expression on his face as he glared at the two children running away before he snickered. I do like a good chase. Naruto was running as fast as his legs could carry him while practically dragging Kuno, in attempts to escape from the psychotic silver-haired man. The feeling of dread filled the air. Quickly looking behind him, Naruto saw Rizevim slowly walking towards them with a creepy grin. The man's aura felt bottomless and creepy, it honestly made their skin crawl. Naruto-kun? Naruto glanced back at the young blonde-haired vixen. Kuno-chan? Naruto replied as he could tell she was scared. Who is that scary man? While still running, Naruto could only shake his head. I don't know, I've never even heard or seen him before. Naruto replied, honestly his father was a Satan and he never mentioned that the original Lucifer had a son? But then again, it wouldn't really be smart to tell a 7-year-old about the cold-hearted, cruel, sadistic, psychotic son of Lucifer, who took great joy in killing his wife and abusing his own son. Naruto glanced back one more time and felt slightly relieved that Rizevim was no longer following them. Breathing a slight sigh of relief, as a small hopeful smile appeared on Naruto's lips. Hey, Kuno-chan, I think he's gone, Naruto said as he could feel Kuno relax slightly. Unfortunately, Naruto ran into something large and solid as he and Kuno were sent to the ground. Glancing up, Naruto's confused expression was replaced by a look of pure terror. There standing above them was Rizevim in all his glory. The man's hazel eyes seemed to shine with an almost supernatural glow, and his grin was more sinister than before. Now that wasn't polite, Tilda. Running away from Uncle Rizevim like that. Now why don't you come here and give me a hug? Come here, lad and girl, and let me squeeze the life out of you, slowly and painfully. K-A-K-A-K-A-K-A-H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A. Rizevim screamed out in an insane tone of voice. This sent chills down the 7-year-old spines as they slowly began to take steps back, only for the son of Lucifer to slowly advance towards them. With a cruel and sadistic grin on his face, as his eyes held much amusement in them. You know it's very disrespectful if you stay silent when an adult is talking to you, Tilda. Rizevim said with the marking pout on his face. It seems your bum of a father and whores of mothers have failed to teach the two of you manners. Well, let me give the two of you a proper etiquette lesson, Tilda. So, you know how to properly act in front of an adult. Rizevim once again screamed in an insane tone of voice, with a wicked grin spread across his face. Quickly glancing at one another, Naruto and Kuno gave a slight nod as they began to run, hoping to get far away from this monster. Unfortunately, Naruto heard Kuno release a scream as he turned around and saw Rizevim pinning her to the ground. Kuno looked up with a look of pure dread on her face. Naruto gritted his teeth in anger as he ran toward Rizevim with his little fist cocked back. Rizevim glanced out of the corner of his eye. Rizevim sighed with a frustrated look on his face, but the small frown turned into a sickening grin, as Rizevim backhanded Naruto across the face. Naruto was thankful for the large amount of draconic aura he possessed, even knowing it was a simple love tap from the son of Lucifer. Naruto's small body was sent hurling across the ground, smacking into the ground multiple times. He eventually came to a stop as his small body began to shake in pain. Yugyagyagyagyagyag Tilda. That's right, my cute little demonic dragon hybrid. Let me Rizevim Levon Lucifer teach you some manners, Tilda. Let's start by breaking your body and soul, and so you know manners, like the dog you are. Rizevim laughed out in an insane tone as he got off Kuno and began to advance towards Naruto. Ah, Tilda. What's the matter, boy, Tilda? Don't you want to spend more time with the legacy of Lucifer? Have you ever considered my feelings? This is how devils truly show affection. Rizevim laughed out as he kicked Naruto in the stomach, sending him flying. Naruto's small body came to a full stop as it slammed into a tree. Naruto upon impact hacked up a mixture of saliva and blood as he slid down the tree onto the ground. Rizevim was taking great joy in watching Naruto tremble on the ground in pain. He then dodged a small sphere of Kitsune by Firefox from behind, turning his attention to Kuno, who was glaring at him. Rizevim was no longer interested in the daughter of Yasaka, as he pointed a finger at the girl before unleashing a blast of demonic power at her. Kuno's eyes widened in fear as the blast hit her head on. Naruto's world stopped as he looked up and saw Kuno fall to the ground with smoke rising from her form. Naruto felt a flurry of emotions right now: despair, fear, sadness, and most importantly an ungodly amount of unyielding rage. His hair shadowed his eyes as he gritted his teeth. His body began trembling for a different reason now. Rizevim simply sneered at the smoldering body of Kuno. You're still alive? I'm actually quite surprised you survived that. Oh well, I guess I'll finish you off now, he said nonchalantly before pointing his finger at Kuno again. Rizevim halted in his action. The feeling of dread filled the area, turning his gaze towards Naruto's. His eyes widened slightly as he saw and felt a deep red malefic aura radiating from the boy. What is this? Rizevim thought as he noticed the boy's eyes were no longer indigo but blood red. Naruto stood up, all his wounds healing at ultra-high speeds. His whisker marks became more feral and dark, his fangs grew longer, his hands became clawed. Naruto dropped down onto all fours as he glared at the son of Lucifer, the aura growing stronger every second. Naruto unleashed a deep beastly roar, as it shook the entire forest and area. His aura caused all the animals in the area to flee for their lives. Deep within Naruto's subconscious, in his mindscape next to the large throne where Naruto's subconscious still hunched over, began to fade away. And next to the throne, still laying on his giant pillow, Kurama cracked open a single eye. So, it's finally happened. Kurama whispered to himself as he glanced towards the avatar of Naruto that was fading away fast. To be honest, I'm surprised it took you this long to wake up. My first and only friend, Kurama said as a feral grin appeared on his face. Two deep groans caught Kurama's attention as he glanced towards the two heavenly dragons. Wonderful, they're waking up, just what I wanted, Kurama thought sarcastically as the dragons pushed themselves up into sitting positions. The dragons seemed disoriented as they glanced around the throne room as their eyes landed on Kurama, who was glaring back at them. So, the two of you finally decided to wake up. Kurama said in a disrespectful tone, causing both dragons to scowl at the massive fox. Be quiet, you giant walking rug. If you haven't noticed, our partner's in danger. Ddraig roared as Kurama rolled his eyes. Yes, I agree with Ddraig. What? Ddraig, what the hell are you doing here? Albion yelled at his rival, who in return glared back. What do you mean by that? Isn't it obvious this boy is my partner? So, why don't you pack your bags and go find a different host? Ddraig roared. I was here first, Ddraig. And I don't care what you say, my power is more than enough. Albion retorted. Finally, having enough of this little argument, Kurama unleashed a powerful roar, knocking Albion and Ddraig on their asses. All right, enough both of you. And for the record, I've been here longer than the two of you, so I don't want to hear any crap from either of you. And what's so special about your power anyways? Can the kid use your full power from the get-go? Kurama asked, demanded. Albion answered first, before Ddraig could open his mouth. Of course not. My host Naruto Uzumaki, I believe, is too weak to wield my power yet. He needs to train to utilize my full power. Albion answered with a little bit of pride behind his words. That is correct. My partner is too weak to utilize my power. Either if he's lucky he'll be able to summon the boosted gear, or Albion's divine dividing in their base state. Ddraig said, following Albion almost perfectly. Kurama glared at the two dragons in front of him with a look of disgust. So, what you're basically telling me is that the two of you are nothing more than a hindrance to the kid. If he can't even utilize your power, then what good are the two of you anyways? Kurama snapped, silencing both dragons. Because unlike the two of you, the kid can utilize my full power whenever he wants. So long as his body can withstand the power. And I don't see either one of you in that much of a hurry to save him. Oi, that was uncalled for, you damn fox. Ddraig yelled in anger. Yes, I agree. Just who the hell are you anyways, fox? Albion sneered in anger. How dare this giant fox say that to them, the two heavenly dragons nonetheless. Kurama seemed to chuckle. Who am I, you ask? Well, I'll give you that answer. My name is Kurama. I am the strongest of the 9 Bijuu, and the largest portion of the Jubi's power. I can flatten mountains and cause tidal waves simply with a lazy swipe of my tail. I can also level entire mountain ranges in a single attack, and when I sync up with the kid I can take down a god-class threat. Oh, and by the way, I don't get weaker from being sealed inside of someone like the two of you do. Kurama chuckled at the very end as the two dragons' eyes widened. So, while maybe in your prime the two of you could easily defeat me, but in your current state you're nothing more than a couple of training dummies for me. Kurama chuckled to himself as the two heavenly dragons glared daggers at him. As they grumbled in response to which Kurama laughed. He would not let these two walking sacks of scales boss him around. Rizevim closely studied Naruto's form as the aura went from a misty flame to a boiling aura in the shape of a fox. This makes no sense. He's half dragon, half devil? Then why is he able to use chakra? The son of Lucifer thought. He wanted to know why something like this was possible. Naruto charged forward, throwing his fist at the silver-haired man, who dodged it easily. Rizevim was surprised at the boy's increase in speed, although he didn't physically show it. It seems you've gotten stronger from seeing your little girlfriend get hurt, Tilda. Rizevim said with a snicker as he snapped his fingers, conjuring multiple magic circles that were pale blue in color. The magic circles fired countless demonic bullets at Naruto, who in return unleashed another beastly roar, knocking the bullets away. Quite interesting. Before he was only comparable to a low-class devil, but now his power increased to a high-class devil. I will find out what makes you tick, Naruto Uzumaki. And when I do, I'll take great joy in stripping you of this power and using it for my own personal gain. Rizevim thought as he reached into his robe, pulling out an empty syringe. Naruto's expression became more feral as he charged at the son of Lucifer, blindly trying to slash him with his claws. Rizevim easily weaved in and out of Naruto's strikes, with a bored expression as he quickly grabbed the boy's arm, jamming the syringe into his arm. The son of Lucifer winced as the vile energy began to burn his skin, quickly taking some of the young Uzumaki's blood into the syringe. With a satisfactory amount of blood in the syringe, Rizevim proceeded to throw Naruto in the opposite direction. Naruto crashed into another tree as he groaned in pain. However, his pain quickly subsided as he glared at the son of Lucifer, who placed the syringe into a storage dimension. Naruto couldn't help but grin as he saw Rizevim hiss in pain as his hand began to turn red from Kurama's toxic chakra. "You little brat, I'm going to get you for this." Rizevim hissed as it felt like his hand was being ravaged by a disease or virus. Naruto stood up on his back legs hunched forward, opening his hand as wisps of violet chakra began to spiral into a compressed sphere. "I enjoy that look of pain on your face." Naruto roared as he charged forward and thrusting his hand forward. "Rasengan," Naruto declared as the sphere made contact with Rizevim, who is too focused on his searing hand. And to be honest, Naruto had no idea where this technique came from, it just simply came to him. "Ah!" Rizevim cried in pain as he was sent hurling backwards by the Rasengan. He was sent through multiple trees before coming to a complete stop several yards away from Naruto. Naruto himself dropped to his hands and knees as the boiling aura left his body, leaving him feeling weak and tired. Naruto made his way over to Kuno, as he placed his hand on her and he could feel her breathing. "I'll get us back home before that man gets back up," Naruto said as he kneeled to pick Kuno up. "You little shit stain of a brat." Naruto heard the enraged voice of Rizevim. It sent chills down his spine. Turning towards the voice, Naruto was blasted by a large amount of demonic aura. Naruto was sent hurling back with such force that he not only broke through the tree but made an indent in the stone wall behind it. Naruto's eyes widened, the wind was knocked out of him, and blood began to rush out of his mouth as he dropped to the ground. Naruto with the last of his strength glanced up and saw Rizevim slowly advancing towards him with a look of pure rage. Rizevim's robe was shredded, the shirt he had been wearing underneath was destroyed thanks to Naruto's Kyuubi-enhanced Rasengan. The flesh on Rizevim's chest and stomach were completely shredded. Blood flowed from the son of Lucifer's fresh wound. Naruto would have tried to crawl away, but he was pretty sure his back was broken now. Rizevim had no intentions of letting them live anyways, but now he was intent on ending Naruto's life slowly and painfully. Without hesitation, the son of Lucifer quickly and effectively grabbed Naruto's ankle and snapped it like a twig. "Wog, yes, yes, yes tilde, keep screaming you little abomination tilde." Rizevim yelled out before grabbing Naruto, pulling him into a bear hug, squeezing the life out of him. "Now how about we try a new game tilde? It's called Pop the Head Off the Little Abomination tilde. Yugyagyagyagyagyd tilde. Wog." Naruto released a heart-wrenching scream as Rizevim tightened his hold on Naruto's small body, applying his demonic power to reinforce his arm's power. The pain was far too much for young Naruto to handle. He kept screaming in agony as he tried his best to get out of Rizevim's iron grip. He couldn't even concentrate his draconic power into magic bullets. Even if he could create one, there is no way he would be able to even remotely hurt this monster holding him. Plus, he couldn't even use his arms, as they were pinned by Rizevim. All seemed lost. Naruto could feel his world going dark. He was losing consciousness. The son of Lucifer's laughter of insanity became muffled and weaker. "Please, Ka-chan, Tu-san, Sarah Oba, Ami Oba, Yasaka Oba, anyone, please help us," Naruto thought with the last of his mental strength. Rizevim released Naruto from his hold, letting the boy drop to the ground with a thud. Glancing down at his handiwork as a sinister grin married his face. "Ah, what's the matter, boy? Well, this is getting boring anyways, I think I'm going to," Rizevim said as he placed his foot on Naruto's head and as he was about to apply some pressure when he was hit by an immense amount of force. "Yuwa!" Rizevim screamed as he was sent flying through multiple trees by an unknown force. Now standing in front of Naruto was an enraged Ajuka who was practically leaking out aura. His fists were tightly clenched as blood seemed to be seeping through his fingers. "Rizevim Levon Lucifer, you damn filth, how dare you attack my son?" Ajuka screamed at the top of his lungs. The current Beelzebub's power began to grow stronger and stronger until it reached heavenly dragon class. His aura wrapped around his body, taking the solid form that resembled black and silver armor. His hair increased in length, reaching his waist. He was surrounded by a green aura that resembled digital code. Ajuka began to take slow steps forward towards the downed son of Lucifer, who released the groan of pain. His aura itself was causing the trees and plant life to wilt. Many people would rather deal with Syareoo than Ajuka for many reasons. Syareoo could become the incarnate of destruction, while Ajuka could become the incarnate of alteration. In his true form known as the demon god of chaos, Ajuka could freely alter and warp reality to a certain extent. While he was nowhere near Ophis, Great Red, Chaos, or Amanamanakanushi no Kami level, he was still no pushover. Naruto felt himself being picked up. Using the rest of his energy, he stared into the face of his crying mother. Naruto-kun, I'm so sorry. We should have came earlier. Tiamat cried as she hugged her son into her bosom. Naruto's vision went dark, as he lost consciousness, and the last thing he heard was the screams of pain coming from Rizevim. Tiamat glanced over to see Yasaka clenching her daughter in a tight grip, as the blonde-haired vixen gritted her teeth in anger as she glared in the direction of the son of Lucifer. Tiamat snapped back to reality when she saw a young man with silver hair that was tied in a braided hairstyle and was wearing a silver robe with detailed accessories. Euclid Lucifuge, Rizevim's right-hand man and Graphia's younger brother. I'm afraid I can't let you leave with that abomination alive. Rizevim-sama desires for that boy to be dead, Euclid declared, as Tiamat and Yasaka both scowled at the man in front of them. Tiamat growled as her body began to emit a cold blue aura, causing the air around her to freeze. Yasaka's tails began to thrash back and forth violently as a bright golden aura surrounded her. Euclid smirked as he pulled out a small syringe filled with a red solution. I came prepared to deal with you, Chaos Karma Dragon. I'm sure you know what this is, it's Samael's cursed blood, he said with a sinister expression while Tiamat's eyes widened in fear. Applying slight pressure to the back of the syringe, causing the blood to squirt out. Because I know I can't defeat you in a fair fight. So, I must improvise and defeat you another way. However, before Euclid could make good on his threat of blast, the black flames destroyed the syringe, causing Rizevim's right-hand man to yelp. Now glaring in the direction of where the black flames came from, Euclid could make out the sound of gentle footsteps. What emerged from behind Tiamat and Yasaka caused Euclid's scowl to shift into a look of fear. Standing behind the two mothers was Amaterasu, the Shinto sun goddess. Her elegant face now possessed a scowl, as she was glaring at Rizevim's right-hand man. Euclid knew he stood so much of a chance against either Yasaka or Tiamat, but Amaterasu was in another league of power. You have some nerve attacking Naru-chan and Kuno-chan, while in Shinto territory, devil. The Lady of the Sun sneered in anger. Euclid took a step back. The only option left was to retreat. He would rather take a beating from Rizevim than have to fight against the strongest of the Shinto trinity, Amaterasu Omikami. It seems this is a bit much for me to handle. But I believe a tactical retreat is best for now. Euclid whispered just loud enough for the three supernatural women to hear him. Amaterasu glared at Euclid before unleashing a torrent of midnight black fire at him, but before the fire could make contact, Euclid activated a teleportation magic circle. Naruto-kun. Amaterasu whipped her head around just in time to see a thick boiling red aura beginning to spill out from Naruto's stomach. Tiamat seemed to be freaking out as she had no idea what this power was. It felt nothing like Albion or Ddraig. Was there something about her son that Great Red didn't tell her? Yasaka instantly jumped up, still holding her daughter in her arms, and quickly making her way over to Tiamat, as did Amaterasu. This is chakra. But how does your son have chakra? Yasaka demanded as Tiamat could only shake her head. I don't know? Glancing in between the two mothers, Amaterasu hesitantly reached her hand out and touched the chakra, and quickly pulled her hand back as she noticed her hand was covered in burns. This chakra is poisonous. It has a malefic feel to it, it's dark and almost sinister. Amaterasu said softly while forcing her divine power into her hand to heal it. Amaterasu frowned when she noticed the burns weren't going away, narrowing her eyes as she forced even more power as her hand was ignited in black flames. The burns began to gradually disappear until they no longer existed. The boiling aura released 3 chakra arms which grabbed Amaterasu, Tiamat, and Yasaka. And almost instantly they felt a strong pull on their consciousness. The 3 supernatural women found themselves deep within Naruto's subconscious, or otherwise known as his mindscape. Looking around, they seemed confused. However, Yasaka and Tiamat began to freak out as their daughter was no longer with them. Calm yourselves. Your kids are fine. A deep, demonic yet powerful voice called out. Tiamat glanced in the direction of the voice before her eyes widened. Amaterasu and Yasaka both followed suit before sharing Tiamat's same expression of shock. Standing a little to their left was a massive kitsune with 9 long swiping tails. Its fur was red-orange with black fur around its eyes that stretches to its ears. red irises with black slits for pupils and the upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on its clawed hands. And what was more shocking was he was sitting on top of both Albion and Ddraig, who both looked as if they had been put through a meat grinder. Greetings, my name is Kurama, and I have been with Naruto Uzumaki since the day he was born. Now I'm sure you all have questions, and I believe it's time that you tell them the truth, Dragoness. Kurama advised as all eyes were now on Tiamat, who looked nervous. Yasaka was trembling before this Kyuubi. It was massive, nearly 100 meters long without counting his tails. Amaterasu narrowed her eyes at the massive fox, who seemed to be grinning at them. So, something about Naru-chan was never explained? Then what is it? Amaterasu asked, obviously curious. Yes, I believe it's time that you learn about the kid. And whatever you do, don't blame Tiamat for this. If you want to blame anyone, blame that giant red dragon called Great Red. Kurama explained with a more serious expression on his face as he stood up, getting off the two heavenly dragons. Blame the Apocalypse Dragon, why? Amaterasu asked as she felt a chill go down her spine at the mention of the most powerful being in existence. Kurama waltzed over to his pillow before falling over on it as he gave a relaxed sigh. I might as well start with this. Naruto may start having weird dreams sooner or later. Just to let you know, they will most likely be memories of his past life. Neither I nor Naruto originated from this world, we came from a different world. However, I don't know the name of the world, I only know the name of the country, the Elemental Nations. Kurama said as he gauged their expressions. Amaterasu seemed to be the calmest out of the three. Yasaka seemed to be more nervous about Kurama than anything else, while Tiamat seemed extremely nervous. You see, we were fighting a war against an old enemy of mine. Who he was and why he starts the war is not important. All you need to know is that this man is responsible for Naruto being in this world, or at least partially responsible. Naruto was floating in the dimensional gap, as you all call it. Naruto was saved by Great Red, who stated that Naruto would be the one to decide the fate of this world. And therefore, implanted Naruto in Tiamat after convincing her to be his mother. Kurama explained further. So, you're telling us that the Apocalypse Dragon is using Naruto as a way to decide the fate of this world? And he chose Tiamat to be his mother? You must understand how far-fetched this story sounds. Amaterasu said with a serious expression as Yasaka nodded in agreement. Tiamat sighed as she glanced at Yasaka and Amaterasu. It's true, Tiamat said as Amaterasu and Yasaka glanced at her. Sakiryu Shinte-sama told me he saw the future of this world, as he said, two people, Rizevim Levon Lucifer, son of the morning star himself and the beginning mother of all devils, and Hades, the Greek god of the dead. They will be responsible for the end of the world in the coming years. I asked him why not speak to the faction leaders and tell them about it. His simple response was that it would do little good, since the actions of Rizevim is what pushed Hades into doing the unspeakable. Using Lilith's body to create an army of super devils to destroy the world, or at least all devils and fallen angels. Tiamat explained, causing the sun goddess and the Yukai leader's eyes to widen. Kurama nodded with a frown. Yes, and he also put Albion and Ddraig in here with me. Honestly, I don't understand that giant red dragon's thinking. These two are incapable of working together, so I decided to put them in their place, by beating them half to death. As they basically told me that Naruto would be incapable of using their power until he became stronger. So right now, the kid is only capable of using my power, which in my opinion should be more than enough for the moment. Kurama growled as the two beaten heavenly dragons whimpered. Amaterasu admired the protectiveness that Kurama held for Naruto. Naru-chan means a lot to you, doesn't he? Amaterasu said as a small smile graced her lips. Kurama chuckled slightly. You could say that. After all, he was my first and only friend. The only person to look beyond my persona as a demon fox and saw me for what I truly was. Kurama said before resting his chin on his paws. It's the reason why I gave him as much of my power as I could. So, he could not only protect himself but also to protect the little blonde vixen he's become quite attached to. Kurama chuckled as he glanced at Yasaka. Yasaka sent Kurama a nod. Thank you for protecting my daughter, Kurama-sama. Yasaka said while bowing to the massive fox, who narrowed his eyes. First of all, do not call me Sama. It just sounds wrong on so many levels. And secondly, I have a good idea on what you're thinking. And sadly, it would never work. I'm nothing like you, vixen. I'm a mass of prime chakra. Given consciousness, I have no reproductive organs. Kurama said bluntly, causing Yasaka to blush as Amaterasu giggled. Yasaka was now blushing up a storm. Tiamat decided to come to her future-in-law's rescue. I don't think that's what she was implying, Kurama. Tiamat said while Kurama rolled his eyes. I can sense emotions, or rather negative emotions. And I can feel a large amount of lust coming off her. Kurama said without a care in the world. Amaterasu smirked at Yasaka. Is there something you're not telling us, Yasaka-chan? Yasaka opened her mouth, and yet no words were able to escape as her embarrassment had reached a whole new level. Yes, it was true, Yasaka indeed missed her late husband, and a certain itch had been getting more intense over the years, and she desperately needed a release. I believe it's time for you to leave. If you ever need to speak with me, simply fist bump Naruto and I will be able to bring you in here. Kurama said before releasing a large yawn. And before any of the supernatural women could even utter a word, they were forced out of Naruto's mindscape. Kurama chuckled as he closed his eyes. You better be careful, kid, because I have a feeling that blonde-haired vixen Yasaka may be gunning for you in the future. A large explosion of dark green energy shook the forest, as a cry of pain could be heard. Rizevim had used his wings to shield himself from the blast. But, because he just withstood the impact of that explosion, more than half of his wings were damaged, and blood was dripping out of every part of his body. Blood was seeping out of his ears, nose and mouth. Ajuka stood across from him without a single scratch on him with his hand extended. You gotten stronger since the last time we met, Ajuka-kun. Rizevim said while his expression was intertwined with anger and unease. Ajuka didn't respond as he snapped his fingers as a dark green triangular shape made completely out of magic began to surround the son of Lucifer. Prepare for oblivion, Rizevim. I hope you enjoy the dimensional gap. Ajuka said before snapping his fingers again. Rizevim knew how dangerous Ajuka's magical shapes were. Anything trapped within them could be teleported, altered, or completely ripped apart within seconds. With a quick flap of his broken wings and before the magic triangle could be completely formed, Rizevim tried to escape. Sadly enough, the magic shape completely severed his right arm, teleporting it into the dimensional gap. Ajuka glared at the son of Lucifer before sending another powerful blast of dark green demonic aura at Rizevim, who desperately tried to dodge it. Rizevim was many things: insane, incredibly sadistic, enjoyed causing others pain, but he was not stupid. He knew better than to pick a fight with Syareoo or Ajuka, and unlike the other three descendants who were as intelligent as a dumb German shepherd. He knew his chances of survival were slim right now, especially with Ajuka in his true form. Rizevim staggered backwards slightly as he hunched forward, breathing heavily. His body was starting to go numb from the pain Ajuka had subjected him to. Rizevim had no plans of dying now as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a black sphere. Ajuka glared at the object as he prepared another blast of demonic power, as the clearly insane super devil threw to the ground. Causing an explosion of dark mist, Ajuka narrowed his eyes as he unleashed a powerful burst of wind, knocking the mist away. Rizevim was nowhere seen, while Ajuka internally growled at the fact that he let Rizevim get away. Ajuka was now fueled by rage as he threw a punch to the ground, causing an explosion of dirt and dust that sent tremors through the entire city of Kyoto. Damn it! Ajuka roared to the heavens as his power increased further, reaching a level even above the heavenly dragons in their prime. Ajuka Beelzebub was at the very least 10 times stronger than the original Lucifer, and nearly 13 times stronger than the original Beelzebub. Ajuka dispelled his true form before he made his way back to Tiamat and the others. Upon arriving, he saw Amaterasu healing both Naruto and Kuno. Tiamat and Yasaka made their way over to the current Beelzebub, both sporting serious expressions. Ajuka-kun, we need to talk. Ajuka without hesitating nodded. I take it you told them? Tiamat nodded as Ajuka sighed. I can understand if you're angry at me and Tiamat for this. But for the time being we can't tell anyone else. He advised as Yasaka nodded in agreement. Don't worry, me and Amaterasu-sama understand completely. And we'll do anything we can do to help. This threw the current Beelzebub through a loop. Just what the hell happened while he was beating Rizevim half to death? 10 years. 10 long years had passed since Rizevim had attempted to murder Naruto and Kuno. Things were tough, especially for Naruto and Kuno. Despite being comfortable around Ajuka and Syareoo, Kuno wasn't fond of devils after meeting the son of Lucifer. Naruto on the other hand made a vow that he would make the son of Lucifer paid for what he did to himself and Kuno. In the past 10 years both Naruto and Kuno had grown, not just physically but also mentally. Naruto was no longer a small 7-year-old child, but a tall muscular young man with light tanned skin, shoulder-length spiky blue hair, while the tips of his hair turned blonde. While Kuno went from an adorable 7-year-old girl to a young beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure, she was the spitting image of her mother. She truly was an elegant princess through and through. Naruto had regained most of his memories over the past 10 years. At first Naruto was conflicted as he always promised himself he would become Hokage, and he promised Sakura he would bring back Sasuke. But as the years went on Naruto simply stopped caring, most of his memories from the elemental nations were negative anyways. And he had a mother and father in this world, something he never had in the elemental nations. But there was one positive thing: he still had Kurama, the giant furry pain in the ass that had been with him since birth. And it didn't take Naruto long to remaster most of his abilities apart from Senjutsu? Well, it was quite simple. Naruto's new draconic body was not adapted to absorbing nature energy like his previous body. So, he would need to find a way to absorb nature energy into his body. And when he brought this up to Tiamat, she was worried at first, but then she decided to get in contact with an old friend of hers, Yu Long. Sun Wukong agreed to train Naruto in the arts of Senjutsu and Tuki. And much to the surprise of the former Monkey King, and everyone else excluding Kurama of course. They were all in absolute awe at how fast Naruto mastered Senjutsu. Usually it takes years to master it, and Naruto did it in less than a month. And not only did this increase Naruto's skills but also reawaken his old Senjutsu from the elemental nations, which was even stronger than before. Kuno also joined in with Naruto, and started learning Senjutsu from Sun Wukong, and she was a natural just like Naruto, although she didn't master it fast as he did. And due to how much time she spent around Naruto, Kurama decided to give her a little gift since he had taken a liking to the young vixen as well. Having Naruto bring her into his mindscape, where Kurama injected her with a large amount of his chakra. Not only did this process grant Kuno a chakra pathway but also turned her into a pseudo-Jinchuriki. Naruto along with Kuno had both mastered many types of magic over the years. Although the one magic that Naruto seemed to enjoy using the most was the magic he learned from Amaterasu. It was her personal magic known as Heavenly Body Magic, which allowed the Uzumaki-turned dragon to wield stars, meteorites, black holes, and other celestial objects. Then Kuno on the other hand learned how to wield Amaterasu's eternal black flames, flames as hot as the sun and would burn for 7 days and 7 nights non-stop. And this is where we find our young couple today. A young couple were sleeping together on a large comfortable bed. The young male with whisker marks on his cheeks, wearing a loose-fitting yukata that was blue and gold in color. Laying next to him with her head on his chest was a beautiful young woman with long golden blonde hair, wearing an elegant beautiful sea green yukata which was practically falling off her form. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes. Glancing towards the peaceful sleeping form of Kuno, he gave a small smile, before gently placing a kiss on her forehead, causing her to stir in her sleep. Naruto looked towards the digital alarm clock on the desk which read 8:15 in the morning. I guess we slept in today? Naruto thought as he gently began to shake his fiancée Kuno. Yes, the young Uzumaki-turned dragon proposed to her a few months back, and of course, she said yes, and she made love to him like a fox in heat. Kuno-chan, wake up. It's morning already. Just a little bit longer. Naru-kun? Naruto felt her tighten her grip on him as she nestled into Naruto's yukata. In the past 10 years since Naruto had been going in between the underworld and Kyoto. Naturally Tiamat preferred Naruto to stay with her always, but sadly she soon realized that she couldn't keep Naruto all to herself any longer. Ajuka had given someone else the job of the 4th secret judge of rated games. That way Tiamat could be with Naruto to protect him. As Ajuka knew he couldn't always be around to protect Naruto, and this seemed to be the right decision in his mind, to which Tiamat agreed. Yasaka became even more protective over her daughter Kuno and would personally accompany her daughter anywhere she went when she could. Also, when Amaterasu had time off, she would spend time with Naruto and Kuno. And while Naruto was off training getting stronger, Kuno was busy learning about all the roles that came with being the leader of Kyoto's Ukai faction. And throughout the years, Kuno and Naruto's friendship blossomed into a beautiful loving relationship, and now they were engaged to be married on her 21st birthday. Naruto couldn't help but smirk as he shook her again. We already slept in and yas. Haha, you is probably wondering what we're doing right now. Kuno got up slowly, stretching and yawning, as her large were a jingle almost falling out of her yukata. She glanced at the clock before her eyes widened and quickly jumped out of bed, with her yukata falling to the floor in the process. A dusting of red blush appeared on Naruto's cheeks as he decided to get up as well. A large chamber with a flaunted ceiling held up by colossal pillars of white marble. Crimson silks sewn with golden thread hung from the ceiling and pillars. The floor was of marble bricks, and off to the two corners of the massive chamber were pools of crystal water held an assortment of beautiful koi fish. Near the back of the chambers seated was a wide throne of vibrant scarlet and glaring white. Yasaka sat in a large throne, with a rather annoyed look on her face as her tail swayed back and forth, showing how annoyed she was. Where are they? They're already 45 minutes late? Yasaka thought in an annoyed manner. Standing off to the side wearing a royal blue kimono was Tiamat, while Ajuka was wearing a pale blue and green kimono. Where do you think they are, Ajuka-kun? Tiamat asked her mate, who simply shrugged his shoulders. Your guess is as good as mine, dear. But knowing Naruto, he's either sleeping or him and Kuno are getting it on. The current Beelzebub said while waiting patiently for his son and future daughter-in-law to show up. Yasaka turned to Tiamat and Ajuka with a curious expression. Aren't the two of you in the least bit annoyed that our children are still not here? Yasaka asked with a delicate eyebrow raised. Tiamat shrugged her shoulders. I would be lying if I said I wasn't annoyed. But cut them some slack, they're only 45 minutes late, it could be worse? Tiamat said while Ajuka nodded, remembering one of the novels Naruto had written over the years. Naruto's first book was called The Tales of Pain. Nagato. Naruto's second book was called The Tales of the Copy Ninja. Kakashi. Naruto's third book was called The Tales of the Sacrificial Crow. Itachi. Naruto's fourth book was called The Tales of the Red Death. Kushina. Naruto's fifth book was called The Tales of the Yellow Flash. Minato. Naruto's sixth book was called The Tales of the Toad Sage. Jiraiya. And Naruto's seventh and final book was called The Tales of the Bijuu. Kurama and his siblings. After regaining his memories, Naruto decided to write the life stories of everyone he had been connected to. And this book series was a smash hit, and everyone, especially Amaterasu, Yasaka, Tiamat, Ajuka, Syareoo, Susanoo, Tsukuyomi, Sun Wukong, and several other people had fallen in love with the 7-book series. And Naruto was thankful that Kurama knew so much about his original father Minato, his original mother Kushina, his own senseis Jiraiya and Kakashi, along with his 8 other siblings. However, the novels about Nagato and Itachi were a bit trickier, but Naruto had enough information on them to write a decent-sized story. Soon the sound of footsteps could be heard, and they were getting louder. It sounded almost as if someone was running towards the throne room. A moment later, Naruto and Kuno burst into the throne room, which Yasaka sent a glare towards the pair, letting them know how annoyed she was. Kuno promptly hid behind Naruto while he was sweating bullets. Yasaka slowly stood up from her throne before making her way over to the couple. Her frown turned into a sickly sweet smile. Tiamat couldn't help but snicker at Naruto's predicament, while Ajuka couldn't help but shake his head at his son, gaining the wrath of Yasaka. Naruto-kun, Kuno-chan, why are you so late? You weren't fooling around, were you? She asked in an extremely innocent tone as the couple shook their heads furiously. No, haha, you, the lovers yelled in unison. It took Yasaka years, to get Naruto to call her haha you instead of Ba-chan or Yasaka-chan. At first Tiamat didn't like the idea of Naruto calling Yasaka haha you, while Ajuka really didn't seem to care that much. Then why were you late? We overslept. Yasaka's face faltered at the simple reply. To be honest, she was expecting something much dirtier than that. This caused the dragon and devil couple to snicker as Yasaka sent them a glare. Turning her attention back to her daughter and her future son-in-law. Amaterasu-sama has informed me there have been many human casualties in the town of Kuo. And they were caused all by stray exorcists and fallen angels. and the sisters of the current Lucifer and Leviathan have failed to do anything about it," Yasaka said. Ajuka couldn't help but palm his face as he groaned into his hand. "Syareoo, you idiot. Your sister is too young and unexperienced to rule over a town. Even if Seraph's younger sister is with her," the current Beelzebub thought to himself. Naruto resisted the urge to pinch the bridge of his nose before he stopped. Wait, the sisters of the current Lucifer and Leviathan? When the hell did that happen? Wow, hold on a second, did you just say the younger sisters of Syareoo and Saraoba? Naruto asked with a confused expression. I could have sworn Syareoo Biel was the one elected to be in charge of Kuo Town? Naruto asked. That's because he turned it down. And before we could come up with another decision, Syareoo came up with the idea of Rias and Sona being left in charge of Kuo. Ajuka answered. Kuno didn't like the sound of that at all. She had met Syareoo a few times when she accompanied Naruto and her mother to the underworld. And she had taken a liking to the next heir of the Biel clan, who in her opinion was a noble, calm and a kind-hearted person. And, the Biel heir was not only Naruto's rival but also one of the few people in their age range who could challenge Naruto and hold his own against the Bluenet. And even knowing neither Naruto nor Kuno had met Rias Gremory, and they already knew they wouldn't like her from what Ajuka had told them about her. Apparently, she had Syareoo wrapped around her little finger, and was extremely spoiled and had a tendency of lying. So, you're saying that there's been many human casualties in Kuo? And they've all been caused by stray exorcist and fallen angels? So why hasn't Sona or Rias done anything about them? Kuno asked her mother with a neutral expression. If I were to guess out of Sona and Rias, which one would allow this to happen? I would go with the latter of the two. Sona's Sea-Tree would never allow something like this to happen. She would have annihilated the fallen angels and stray exorcist immediately. Ajuka added. And from what I've heard, Rias gained all her peerage members, after they've suffered some type of tragedy. Tiamat added with a frown marrying her delicate features. So, I take it Ami Oba wants us to do something about it? Naruto said, gaining a more serious expression. Yes. Amaterasu-sama really wants you and Kuno to attend classes at Kuo Academy as a student to get to the bottom of this. And once you do that, she said you're both free to leave, or if you choose to stay it's your choice. Yasaka explained. Well, I guess it can't be helped. Naruto sighed before nodding. I'll inform her right away. In the meantime, go enjoy yourselves, do something together. Yasaka dismissed them, as the lovers bowed. Ajuka stepped forward as he was holding two boxes, one was cerulean blue, the other was golden yellow. Hold on you two, I got a gift for the both of you. The current Beelzebub said with a smile. Naruto instantly recognized the boxes his father was holding, they were evil pieces? And he also noticed there were two sets of them? Two-san? Why do you have two sets of evil pieces on you? Naruto asked as he felt Kuno starting to get uncomfortable next to him. Ajuka chuckled as he handed the blue box to Naruto and the yellow one to Kuno. These are not evil pieces, although they are similar. Naruto, the pieces that you possess are known as dragon pieces, think of them as a dragon version of evil pieces. The current Beelzebub said with a proud smile as he glanced at the Yukai princess. As for you Kunoheim, what I gave to you are Kitsune pieces. It's a Kitsune version of evil pieces. Naruto opened his box and he knew what evil pieces looked like. They look like white chest pieces. Although after a devil bonded with their evil pieces they would change color, however Naruto's chest pieces seem to be made from blue crystals. The same goes for Kuno, except that her set were yellow in color instead of blue. Now all you have to do is flow your power into the pieces and then take the king piece into you. Ajuka instructed, as the young couple did as they were told. Upon doing so, Naruto's pieces became more jagged and spiky, while Kuno's became more round and smooth, but both sets seemed to be giving off an eerie glow. Naruto placed the king piece against his chest, as did Kuno. Within seconds the pieces sunk into them as their power seemed to increase by a small margin. Ajuka's smile seemed to increase in size, as Yasaka and Tiamat were also happy. It was a success, the same as both of your Ka-chans. The current Beelzebub said, catching the attention of Naruto and Kuno, who both stared at him. Yeah, I made a set for both Tiamat and Yasaka. I thought it would be a sweet going-away present. Ajuka said offhandedly. So, who's going to be your queen, Naruto-kun? Tiamat asked her son. I'm also curious who will be your queen, Kuno. Yasaka asked her daughter. Naruto reached into his box, pulling out his queen piece before glancing at Kuno, who seemed to be doing the exact same thing as him. With his free hand, Naruto placed his queen piece against Kuno. Kuno also placed her queen piece against Naruto's chest. I command thee, Kuno, on my name is Naruto Uzumaki. Become my queen and walk beside me as a dragon. I command thee, Naruto Uzumaki, on my name is Kuno. Become my queen and walk beside me as a kitsune. As this was happening, the three adults didn't seem that surprised by this. To them this was the most likely scenario. While both Yasaka and Tiamat were satisfied with their children's choice of a queen, Naruto and Kuno's aura and power shot up again. Naruto was now on par with an average ultimate class devil, although he was still considerably weaker than Yasaka in his base form. Although this is not counting any power-ups or enhancements from Kurama, Albion, or Ddraig. Kuno was almost on par with a newly promoted ultimate class devil. Naruto felt something weird turning his head. He noticed 9 tails cloaked in cerulean blue fur attached to where his tailbone was, and gently rubbing the top of his head, he felt a pair of ears. Kuno had sprouted a pair of golden dragon wings from her back. This feels weird? Kuno said as Naruto chuckled at her. You feel weird? You only have a pair of wings? Look at me, I just grew 9 tails and a pair of ears? Naruto retorted with a smirk as Kuno lightly smacked him. Ajuka cleared his throat, gaining the attention of the young couple. The same rules that apply to the evil pieces apply to these. Although only the two of you, my wife Tiamat, and Kuno's mother Yasaka are the only ones that have dragon or kitsune pieces. So be careful who you reincarnate, and just to let you know, Naruto, your dragon pieces can reincarnate up to a god class being. The same goes to you, Kuno. I've made some improvements from the evil pieces, although you can't reincarnate anyone who is at heavenly dragon class or higher. Ajuka said. Naruto bowed to his father, as did Kuno to her future father-in-law. Thank you, Tu-san, Ajuka-sama. Ajuka just shrugged his shoulders. Kuno, you don't have to call me that, just call me Ajuka-san or something. He said. Hi, Chi-Chi-you, Kuno said with a slight embarrassed expression, causing everyone besides Naruto to choke on air. Naruto did his best to suppress a chuckle as he glanced at Yasaka and couldn't help but think payback was a bitch. Although Yasaka didn't seem to be that upset by it, nor did Tiamat seem upset. Ajuka just stared at Kuno with a blank expression before turning to Tiamat, who giggled. Naruto leaned towards Kuno before whispering into her ear. Let's go, he said as she nodded as the young couple left the throne room. Naruto and Kuno were walking hand in hand through the busy streets of Kyoto. Most likely they would be leaving Kyoto in a few days, so the young couple wanted to enjoy themselves. The security in Kyoto had increased ever since the Rizevim incident, and there have been several stray devils and fallen angels that had tried to start trouble in Kyoto but were quickly apprehended. Naru-kun. Yeah, Kuno-chan, what's up? Kuno looked her fiancé dead in the eyes. I know we're supposed to be relaxing before we head out to Kuo. But I was wondering if you could help me gain control over my new draconic power? Naruto smiled as he nodded. Let's go to our training grounds then. Plus, I'm going to need a little bit of help to gain control over the kitsune powers I gained too? Naruto replied. Why would you need my help? Can't you ask Kurama? Naruto stared at Kuno with a deadpan expression before shaking his head. No, I can't. You do know he's a mass of chakra given consciousness, right? Naruto said as Kuno blushed in embarrassment before turning her head to the side to hide her blush from Naruto. You know, just because I can't use magic or Ukai abilities doesn't mean I can't help you, Kit. Kurama's voice echoed throughout Naruto and Kuno's now shared mindscape. This is both a positive and negative thing since Kuno's status as a pseudo-Jinchuriki. I know that, Kurama. And you've been nothing but helpful to both me and Kuno over the past 10 years. Naruto replied to his furry friend. It's been a while since the last time you talked to us, Kurama-sama. Kuno replied to the massive kitsune with a humanoid upper body structure. How many times have I told you not to call me Sama? Kurama whined, causing both Naruto and Kuno to chuckle, giggle at the strongest Bijuu. Oi, Fox, don't yell so loud. Some of us are trying to sleep. The annoyed voice of Ddraig made itself known. Ddraig, you're no better than Kurama. So why don't you shut up and go back to sleep? Albion retorted. Naruto groaned as he sent a playful glare at Kuno. Kuno-chan, see what you did. You started an argument in between Kurama, Albion, and Ddraig. Kuno giggled at her soon-to-be husband's dismay. Sorry Naruto-kun, I couldn't resist. Naruto couldn't stay mad at Kuno for long as he leaned forward kissing her on the cheek. It's all right, it's a good way for the three of them to bond. Who knows, maybe they will become best friends. Naruto said offhandedly. There is no way I'm befriending these two sacks of scales. Oh, shut up you good-for-nothing walking rug. Like any of us can become friends. Naruto must be delusional if he believes that will happen. The young couple rolled their eyes at the internal battle that was developing within their shared mindscape. Just ignore them and they'll eventually quiet down. Naruto whispered to Kuno, who giggled and nodded. Don't you dare ignore us, you little gakis. You're so cruel, partner. How dare you ignore me? Now intentionally ignoring the two heavenly dragons and the Kyuubi no Yoko, the young couple continued on their way towards the training grounds. Naruto stood off to the side as he watched Kuno getting used to her new dragon wings. She was a little bit shaky at first, and nearly fell out of the sky, and nearly gave Naruto a heart attack. Sure, Kuno can fly by using magic, but being able to fly with wings was much more beneficial. For one thing, it didn't use up your magic reserves, and once you master it, it was no different than walking. Naruto smirked as he saw Kuno zipping back and forth across the sky as he could hear her joyous laughter. All right Kuno-chan, come on down. Naruto called out to his fiancée, who pouted at first but complied. Yes Naruto-kun? As you know, I'm able to use 3 different elements due to my draconic heritage. My Ka-chan is one of the few dragons who possesses more than one element, namely fire. I want to see if you're capable of using something other than fire, such as ice or lightning. Naruto said as he raised his hands. In his left hand began to develop frost on it, while his right hand began to discharge deep blue sparks of electricity. Kuno frowned as she looked at Naruto. Naruto-kun, I have no idea how draconic elements work. This caused Naruto to frown as he tapped his finger against his chin. Well, how my Ka-chan explained it to me was you simply infuse your draconic aura into your lungs or hands and imagine the element you want to use and unleash it. Naruto explained as he inhaled deeply before expelling a large wave of royal blue flames from his mouth. Kuno nodded as she did as she was instructed, closing her eyes and giving a calming sigh, before inhaling deeply, infusing her new draconic aura into her lungs. Opening her eyes as she unleashed nothing but a mixture of hot air and a few embers of blue flames. This resulted in Kuno beginning to cough as it felt like her throat was on fire. Naruto gently rubbed her back as he couldn't help but frown. It doesn't make any sense? I was able to unleash a massive amount of flames on my first try? Naruto thought before Ddraig decided to speak up. That's because most dragons can't breathe fire on their first attempt. You were a prodigy from the very beginning, especially since Great Red had a lot to do with your rebirth in this world. Ddraig explained. Does that mean I won't be able to use dragon flames? Kuno asked. Maybe, maybe not. Remember, not all dragons breathe fire. Look at me for example, I produce large amounts of poison and venom. Apophis produces shadow and darkness as well as black water. Azidahaka can't breathe fire either, instead he's able to create immensely powerful illusions and is possibly the greatest magic-wielding dragon ever. Albion explained. In other words, Kuno, just channel your draconic power and don't focus on any element, just let it flow. Kurama said with a fanged grin. Who knows, you may possess an element that no other dragon has ever possessed before. Kuno smiled as she nodded before channeling her draconic power into her hands as she brought them closer together. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Since when did the 3 of you ever get along? I know the 3 of you tolerate each other, but I wasn't expecting something like that. Naruto couldn't help but ask his 3 tenants. Kid, as you know, we often get on each other's nerves and fight a lot. But the 3 of us do care about you and Kuno. And we can put our differences aside if we must. Kurama explained sagely. Indeed, partner will always be by your side no matter what. The fox speaks with wisdom far beyond his years. What the hell is that supposed to mean, wisdom beyond my years? Kurama retorted. What Albion's trying to say is that you're the youngest out of the 3 of us. Ddraig replied before Albion could start another argument. To which Albion grumbled, muttering out a few words while Kurama and Ddraig seemed to ignore them or may have not even heard them at all. Naruto then turned his attention back to Kuno, as his eyes widened at what he witnessed forming in between her hands. It was something he had never seen before. It looked like a congealed mass of fire. It appeared purplish and blue in color, and it looked almost like a miniature star or sun. Naruto-kun, do you have any idea what this is? Kuno asked, obviously confused. Naruto shook his head. Your guess is as good as mine? Perhaps we should ask my Ka-chan, maybe she might know. Naruto said before placing his hand on her shoulder. I'm going to teleport us back to the Imperial Palace. I know my Ka-chan is still there. Kuno nodded as Naruto closed eyes and focused. Hirai-shin. In the blink of an eye, both Naruto and Kuno vanished in a blue flash. That's right, Naruto was able to replicate his original father's technique that made him famous and earned him the nickname the Yellow Flash. As a master of senjutsu, Naruto had the ability and potential to learn both space and time manipulation. Within the throne room of the Imperial Palace, Yasaka, Tiamat, Ajuka, and Amaterasu were all discussing the specifics of Naruto and Kuno's mission in Kuo Town. When a flickering blue flash appeared in the center of the throne room, revealing Naruto and Kuno. The latter of whom was holding a congealed sphere of bluish-purple flames. Tiamat was instantly drawn to the sphere of flames floating just inches above Kuno's open palms. I've never seen flames like these before? Tiamat said softly. As Ajuka narrowed his eyes, he too had never seen flames like this. Naruto-kun? Naruto turned his attention to Yasaka, who was staring at him. Yes, Yasa? Haha, you? I have a feeling you came back here not just to show off my Masumi's new flames? Yasaka asked while Naruto nodded. Yes. Well, you see, I don't know what kind of flames these are. I was hoping one of you could possibly help us figure that out. Naruto asked politely as Amaterasu smiled. Well, that's a simple question to answer, Naru-chan. Amaterasu chirped before making her way over to Kuno. These are not ordinary flames, they're even hotter than my divine black flames. This is plasma, the fourth state of matter, also known as ionized gas, consisting of positive ions and free electrons in proportions resulting in more or less no overall electric charge, typically at low pressures. Amaterasu explained. Plasma? Naruto whispered to himself. He would have never guessed that on his own. Also, plasma can take the form of not only fire but also lightning and even light. Amaterasu added. Her smile never left her face as she looked at Kuno. Kuno-chan, you have a very powerful ability. So be careful with this plasma as it can reach temperatures much higher than the sun. Ajuka then decided to speak up. I never knew the dragon pieces could create such a dangerous power? The current Beelzebub said to himself. So, it's basically a cheat code power. Having the ability to not only use fire, lightning, and light all wrapped together in the same package? Ajuka said, feeling a little bit jealous. Tiamat glanced at her mate before giggling slightly. You're not getting jealous, are you, Ajuka-kun? The Chaos Karma Dragon teased. While Ajuka huffed while crossing his arms. I'm not jealous, I'm just intrigued, that's all. Ajuka retorted. Kuno calmly dispelled the ball of plasma, as Amaterasu coughed, getting the young couple's attention. Naru-chan, Kuno-chan. I'm sure the both of you are well aware of your upcoming mission in Kuo Town, right? Amaterasu asked as the two teens nodded, as the beautiful goddess continued. Therefore, I have already signed you up to attend classes in Kuo Academy. So, you can keep an eye on the current Gremory heiress. However, please be careful, she may try some underhanded tactics to get you to join her peerage. Amaterasu said with concern in her voice. Don't worry, Ami-oba. Me and Kuno-chan will be careful, we promise. Naruto said before he got hugged by his surrogate aunt. Ooh, I'm going to miss the two of you. The two of you will be heading out tomorrow morning and you'll be starting classes the day after that. Amaterasu said before unintentionally burying Naruto's head into her bosom. Amaterasu, you're suffocating my son. Tiamat yelled as she noticed her son's arms flailing around trying to free himself from the prison of flesh. Amaterasu pouted as she let Naruto go, who fell to the floor gasping for air. Kuno rushed to his side. I understand you're gonna miss us, Ami-oba, but please don't do that anymore. Naruto whined, which Amaterasu childishly glared at him. Ajuka and Yasaka simply watched on with amusement, as it was rare to see the Shinto sun goddess act so childishly. Naruto and Kuno were walking side by side on their way to Kuo Academy. Naruto wasn't too fond about wearing a school uniform. He wasn't one for formal wear. Kuno didn't mind going to school, in fact, She couldn't wait, although Naruto had to admit that she looked absolutely adorable in her uniform. Kuno's outfit consisted of the normal female Kuo Academy dress attire, a magenta-colored skirt, a long-sleeve white button-down shirt, a waist-tape jacket kilt-like thing, and shoulder cape thing, I guess you could call it that. Of course, she had to hide her yukai features, unless the young couple wanted to cause a scene. And as for Naruto, he wore the male version of the Kuo Academy uniform. Basically, he wore a black blazer, white button-up shirt completely open, wearing a blue shirt underneath, black pants, and he wore black shoes. Naruto didn't care what the dress code was, he was not wearing those uncomfortable brown clodhoppers they called shoes. Naru-kun? Yes, Kuno-chan? Won't Sona and Rias recognize you? The young vixen asked while Naruto shook his head. No, they won't. My identity has been kept secret from the entire underworld, only a select few know of my existence. And I know Syareoo wouldn't break our trust like that, although I'm not too sure about Searsex. But I do believe he would keep it a secret, at least I hope he did. Naruto said with a frown. Are you sure the seals suppressing our power will keep us hidden from the devils, fallen angels, and stray exorcists? The daughter of Yasaka asked, slightly nervous, while Naruto nodded, giving her a reassuring smile. Of course, these seals were developed by Tsukuyomi-sama himself. Remember, it's his seals that keep Kyoto safe from supernatural threats. Naruto said. Naru-kun, you've met the other members of the Shinto Trinity, haven't you? Kuno asked while Naruto frowned, shaking his head. I've never personally met Tsukuyomi-sama or Susanoo-sama. I've talked to them through a magic circle phone but never in person. Naruto replied softly. The young couple came to the gate leading to Kuo Academy. This place was big, but not as big as the Imperial Palace or some of the mansions in the underworld. But it was still pretty big, and the young couple can clearly sense demonic energy flowing throughout this place. Naruto took Kuno's hand before they made their way through the front courtyard of the academy. And almost immediately all the students turned their attention to the young couple. On the male students' side, they were all drawn to the beauty of Kuno. While on the female side, they were all drawn to Naruto's handsome figure. Holy shit, do you see the knockers on her? Spoke a perverted young fat male. Which was followed by another male with perverted tendencies. I wonder if she's single because she's absolutely gorgeous like a goddess. Are you free tonight? Look into her eyes, they're so beautiful. Hey hottie, why don't you ditch the dope, and let's have some fun back at my place tonight. That was the most troublesome kid in the entire academy who held out to the young vixen. Which didn't settle too well with the son of Tiamat, and now he was debating on whether to kill this kid. Kuno wasn't the only one getting harassed. Naruto had it just as bad. Look at him, his eyes, his hair, his body, he's absolutely perfect. Screeched one of the girls. Another girl with red hair and brown eyes screamed out. Hey, hottie, come back to my place. I got sake and a boatload of porn, we can have fun tonight. A lot of fun. Okay. That last one sends shivers down the Uzumaki-turned-dragon's spine and made Kuno want to kill this girl on the spot with her Kitsune bai. I want to be the mother of your child. Naruto couldn't believe any of this. He and Kuno were trying to keep a low profile here, but they were getting picked off one by all these hormonal teenagers. This is absolute bullshit, I can't believe this. I'm gonna end up killing every male in this school. Naruto grumbled and thought, I'm scared. The boys back at home in Kyoto were never this aggressive. Kuno shivered and thought, yeah, the young couple made a beeline for the academy, leaving all the hormonal students behind who were still sending out catcalls and wolf whistles towards them. Their first day at Kuo Academy and they already wanted to go back home to Kyoto. Akano. Rias Gremory, a young beautiful girl with crimson red hair and blue eyes, asked while she observed the strange spiky blonde young man and the beautiful blonde girl walking beside him. Do you know who those two are? That's one of our newer students, Uzumaki Naruto-kun? Akano answered. If I'm not mistaken, today is his first day at Kuo Academy? It's almost like he popped into this world. Akano's delicate lips soon formed into a teasing smile. Why do you ask? Has Bucko become interested in one of Kuo Academy's newest students, Tilda? Rias completely ignoring Akino's last comment. What about that blonde-haired girl walking beside him? Akano then placed her finger on her chin. She seems to have arrived with Naruto-kun. I believe her name is Kuno-chan, no last name. It seems that they may be in a relationship with one another? Akino's teasing smile soon returned. Why you're not jealous are you bucko tilde? Ria's brow began to twitch in annoyance. No, I'm not jealous Akino. Akino covered her mouth with her hand as she giggled. Rias went back to observing the two blondes. Naruto and Kuno. Naruto and Kuno walked down the halls of Kuo Academy, with one destination in mind: to find the student council room and get their schedules from Suna Shitori, aka Sona Citri, younger sister of Serafal Leviathan and the youngest daughter of Lord and Lady Citri. Coming to a large set of doors, Naruto gently knocked. A few seconds later a feminine voice came from the other side of the door, "Come in." After hearing the verbal invitation, both Kuno and Naruto entered the room. The room was completely empty apart from two young women. The first young woman was a young bespectacled woman with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes. While the second one was a young bespectacled woman with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. "How may I help you?" Sona asked while she observed Naruto and Kuno with a calculative gaze. Naruto gave the Citri heiress a warm smile which caused said heiress to blush. "We're here to pick up our schedules. I'm Uzumaki Naruto and this is my girlfriend Kuno," Naruto said in a friendly manner as Kuno bowed her head slightly. Quickly shaking her head, Sona stood from her desk and handed the young couple their new schedules for Kuo Academy. "Here you go. And please refrain from causing any mischief while you study here," Sona said with a sharp tone. "You don't have to worry about us, we won't cause any trouble for you," Kuno said before waving goodbye. Naruto stayed there for a moment as his eyes narrowed at Sona and her queen Tsubaki. "You're just as Syareoo described," Naruto said softly, causing Sona's eyes to widen. "Wah, you know my Nae-sama?" Sona demanded. Naruto nodded. "Yes, I know her quite well in fact. But I believe a proper introduction is in order. However, I must warn you. You are not to repeat any of this to Rias Gremory," Naruto said in a harsh tone which caused the two devils in the room to shiver. Kuno was gently tapping her foot against the floor, wondering what Naruto was doing in the student council room. However, she didn't have to wait long as the door opened, as Naruto walked out with a smile on his face. "What took you so long?" Kuno asked her fiancé, who shrugged his shoulders. Just giving a proper introduction," Naruto said in a carefree tone, to which Kuno simply deadpanned at Naruto. Anyone who had known Naruto for longer than a day would know that Naruto never did anything properly. He always had a strange way of doing things, and funny enough they always ended up turning out better than the proper way. Placing her hand against her forehead and sighed. "What am I going to do with you, Naru-kun?" Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "I don't know? Love me, feed me, spar with me?" Naruto listed off in a sarcastic manner, to which the beautiful vixen slapped him. "Oh, hush you," she playfully scolded him, to which he chuckled lightly. Within the student council room, both Sona and Tsubaki both appeared to be much paler. What they just heard from Naruto had scared them. No, it downright terrified them. Sitting in her desk, Sona had her face buried in her hands as she groaned. "This is bad. This is very bad. Sona-sama? What is it, Tsubaki? Do you think Uzumaki-san was lying?" Sona shook her head. "No. His power alone should be enough to verify that he's telling the truth. He's easily on par with an ultimate class devil. He's not someone you want to make an enemy out of. It's best not to withhold any information from him either." Sona grumbled, feeling as if she wanted to cry. "I hope it was worth it, Rias. Because of you, we could be in a lot of trouble." Sona thought to herself. Should we warn Rias-sama about him? Tsubaki asked as Sona stared at her queen as if she was crazy. "I already promised him I wouldn't say anything to her. And I don't know about you, but I currently like my position and I don't want to lose it," Sona retorted. Tsubaki nodded, respecting her king's wishes. Sona stared down at her desk before leaning back in her chair. To think Beelzebub-sama had a son with Tiamat, the strongest of the Godai Ryuo. Sona said as she simply couldn't wrap her mind around it. How could something like this happen and no one in the underworld knew about it? And who was Kuno? Yet another mystery that would soon drive her insane. In the second-year student classroom, we find a very frustrated-looking instructor who is trying to regain control of his class. It is complete and utter chaos in his classroom. No one was listening to him, so he commenced Plan B. The instructor reached into his desk, pulling out a blunt object. It had a wooden handle and a long hexagon-shaped cylinder on it. It's a small sledgehammer. What would the instructor need such a dangerous tool for, you ask? Simple. Slamming it on the desk. There was a loud bang throughout the entire classroom which made all the students jump in fear at their psychotic instructor. Now that the instructor had control over his class again, he cleared his throat. Okay, students. We have 2 new students joining us today. The instructor spat out the word student as if it was a curse word. You 2 may come in now. The instructor said in a calm and friendly manner, unlike the manner he spoke to his class in. That was the cue for the young couple to enter the classroom. The door slid open, revealing both Naruto and Kuno in all their glory. The instructor then cleared his throat before speaking in the same kind and gentle manner. All right, you 2, please introduce yourselves to the class. Naruto flashed his usual foxy grin. Yo, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, let's try to get along with one another. Naruto spoke in a friendly warm tone that made all the females in the room blush and all the males green with envy. Next was both Naruto's best friend and fiancé. Konnichiwa, my name is Kuno, I hope we'll get along and be friends. Excuse me Uzumaki-kun, asked the brown-haired girl with large circular glasses. This got the brunette's attention as well got the attention of the adorable but white Kuno. Yes, what is it? Yes, my name is Kiryu Aika and I have a question for the 2 of you. Where did the 2 of you come from? Naruto blinked as he stared at Aika as he wasn't expecting such a normal question. Oh, I and Kuno just moved from Kyoto, and we decided to move here to this lovely little town of Kuo. Naruto said in a friendly manner. Aika's eyes widened in surprise. Kyoto? The 2 of you moved from Kyoto, why the city so beautiful? I wish I could live in Kyoto. Naruto's sweat dropped at the girl's reaction. Well, I do agree with you, Kyoto is a very beautiful city, especially the historical district. Also, we just arrived last night. Kuno answered before Naruto could reply. That Gaki with the spiky brown hair and brown eyes, he's a pervert, I can feel it. Just like your perverted godfather Jiraiya. Kurama snorted in amusement as Naruto couldn't help but mentally nod. Yeah, he definitely is a pervert, alright, I can tell. Naruto replied as Kuno suppressed a shiver. The young princess of the Kyoto Yukai was not too fond of perverts. Partner, the boy with the spiky brown hair and brown eyes, the one glaring at you. He has a dragon in him, however I don't know what dragon is currently sleeping in him. Ddraig spoke. Yes, I feel bad for the poor bastard that's inside him. Albion said. Really now? Do either of you know which dragon is sealed within him? Naruto asked the 2 heavenly dragons. I'm not sure, he's far too weak to tell. Ddraig said bluntly. Plus, the boy has no knowledge of the supernatural world. Albion stated. So, what you're saying is this Arogaki is nothing more than a big walking target for the devils and fallen angels. Kurama thought aloud. This caused Naruto to narrow his eyes. He had a feeling that this boy was somehow involved in Rias and Sona purposely ignoring the fallen angels in Kuo town. But sadly enough, neither him nor Kuno could act without blowing their cover. The last thing he wanted was to hear Syareoo whining and complaining about his precious Rias. Next came the perverted trio. The only one Naruto and Kuno remembered was Issei, the boy who held a dragon-based sacred gear. As for the other 2, neither Naruto nor Kuno couldn't remember their names and they really didn't seem to care all that much about them either. And Naruto swore that he would kill the 3 of them if they even dared touch Kuno. The rest of the day went like any normal day in school, listening to the instructor yak on and on about stuff the young couple didn't need to know about. Rias sat there looking at the little white-haired midget known as Kaneko. Are you sure about this, Kaneko? The cute little white-haired girl with her emotionless expression answered. Hi, something is blocking their aura, I can't tell if they're human or not. Kaneko spoke in her monotone voice. Rias frowned at this as she gently tapped her finger against her chin. She then looked to Kiba. Kiba, can you please bring them here after class? I would like to speak to them personally and get to the bottom of why they're here in my territory. The young blonde boy with a mole under his left eye and steel blue eyes nodded. Hi, bucko, it shall be done. With that, Kiba and Kaneko both left the room. Rias leaned back in her chair, releasing a tired and frustrated sigh. Akano then decided to speak up at this moment. Era, It seems that we have a little problem here, don't we, Rias? That we do, Akano, that we do. Naruto stood from his chair. The sound of the final bell signified his and Kuno's freedom. Looking towards his fiancée, who had a similar bored expression. So Kuno-chan, what did you think of your first day of official school? Because this was the single most boring day of my life, but thankfully we can leave after we finish our mission. Naruto whined. Kuno rolled her eyes as she playfully slapped Naruto again. Standing up to, Kuno grabbed her bag, as the young couple grabbed each other's hands as they began to make their way out of the classroom, only to find an obstacle in their way. That obstacle was none other than the blonde pretty boy named Kiba Yuto. Uzumaki-kun, Kuno-san, my bucko would like to have a few words with you. If you'll please come with me, spoke the blonde-haired pretty boy. How about no? Naruto said before pushing Kiba away as if he was nothing more than a rag doll. This caused an uproar amongst all the girls in the classroom with the exception of a few. Naruto proceeded to ignore them as he made his way out of the classroom with Kuno by his side. Kiba jumped to his feet. Wait, he called out, only for Naruto to turn around and glare at him. His once indigo eyes were now blood red with vertical slits. We're not interested in meeting your bucko. Blondie, now get lost before you get yourself hurt, Naruto said as he continued on his way, as Kuno stuck her tongue out at Kiba. Kiba was unable to move. The look Naruto gave him was enough to paralyze him in fear. What is he? The Knight of Rias Gremory thought to himself as he couldn't stop shaking. I need to let Bucko know about this immediately. Uzumaki-kun could very well become a dangerous threat if not dealt with immediately. Kiba thought before making his way back to the Occult Research Club. The young couple finally made it home. No sooner did they open the door that they felt something was off. And something indeed was off? There was another presence in their house, and it was neither human, dragon, yokai, or devil. No, it was a fallen angel, judging by the signature. Naruto glanced at his fiancée as she nodded to him. Naruto summoned forth his katana, which was forged from the fangs of both Albion and Ddraig. Funny story about this sword: the fangs was in Tiamat's possession, and she never knew what to do with them until Naruto decided he wanted to learn how to wield a sword. So, she had the fangs forged into one singular sword, and the almighty blade was named the Heavenly Claw. While Kuno was preparing a spell and Kitsune Bai to annihilate the intruder. Upon making their way through the hallways as quietly as possible, they could hear the TV playing. Making their way slowly towards the living room and peeking in, they noticed the intruder. He was a tall man appearing in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs, and a black goatee. The man didn't seem to notice them, either that or he just didn't care. Finally, having enough, Naruto stepped in, aiming his blade at the man. Who are you? And what are you doing in our house? Naruto demanded, unleashing a large amount of killer intent, to which the man lazily glanced at Naruto before waving them off. Isn't it obvious I'm catching up on my favorite shows? You're free to join me if you want? The man offered in a carefree tone while Naruto gritted his teeth. Kuno studied this man closely before her eyes widened. She finally realized who this person was. You're Azazel, the Governor General of the Fallen Angels and Grigori. This stopped Naruto in his tracks as he stared at the man closely. Then tell me, why are you a faction leader doing in our house right now, especially in Shinto territory? Naruto asked as Azazel glanced towards Naruto. Very perceptive of you. I'm glad that you know Japan truly belongs to the Shinto gods and not the devils. As to why I am here, well, a few of my subordinates have disobeyed me and gone rogue. I believe they joined up with Kokebiel, who I had lost contact with several weeks ago, and his trail ends here. Azazel said with a serious expression despite his laid-back tone. Kokebiel, you have got to be fucking kidding me? How could you lose contact with him? Anyone with more than 2 brain cells knows he's a warmonger and would do anything in his power to restart the war in between the 3 biblical factions? Naruto said. So, I take it you're the one who sent the fallen angels to observe that boy Issei then? Kuno followed up after Naruto. Azazel nodded. Yes, my sources lead me to believe that he has a powerful sacred gear, possibly a Longinus. Naruto crossed his arms as he frowned at this. So, I was right, he does have a powerful dragon sacred gear. And from what I can gather, it's neither Albion or Ddraig, and the only other dragon-based sacred gear that I know of contains Vritra. Naruto thought aloud. Azazel seemed to chuckle at this. You're wrong, there are 2 more dragon-based sacred gears. Absolute Darkness is a Longinus candidate sacred gear which holds the spirit of the Eclipse Dragon, Apophis. And then there is the other Longinus candidate sacred gear, Diabolism Origin, which holds the spirit of the Diabolism Thousand Dragon, Azzy-Dahaka. They are both evil dragons that had reached a level of heavenly dragon. Most believe that they were both annihilated, but they were both sealed in sacred gears shortly after their demise. The sad part is most people who are chosen to wield their sacred gears end up going insane. This caused Naruto to frown as he glanced at the leader of the fallen angels and could detect no lies coming from him. "So, you believe Issei has one of the evil dragons in him?" Kuno said while Naruto was most likely having an internal monologue with Albion and Ddraig, or possibly both of them. Azazel nodded as he took a deep breath. "He most likely possesses Apophis since my apprentice holds Azzy-Dahaka," Azazel said before standing up from the couch. "Make sure that if his sacred gear activates and he can't control it, you need to dispose of him. Because there can be many casualties?" Azazel said before walking towards the front door. "Wait, what about the rogue fallen angels?" Naruto said. Azazel didn't stop, nor did he look back. "If they cause any more problems, dispose of them any way you like," Azazel said before opening the front door and walking out. This left the young couple alone before they glanced at one another. "It seems things are going to be a bit more complicated than before," Kuno said before looking at Naruto, who pulled out his phone. "I need to get in contact with my Ka-chan and tell her everything that's been going on. You should do the same with Yasaka Oba," Naruto said, not even realizing he called Yasaka by the original nickname he gave her. Kuno nodded as she took out her phone and decided to call her mother and give her an update. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.